Genius Games, I think now.
Right.
And
that
he works
sounds
for
familiar.
Green Ronin and a whole bunch of others, Cobalt Press, whatever. So yeah, so he's been amazingly productive, but he's in bad shape apparently. So yeah, pneumonia or something. Yeah.
And also Jim Ward was not feeling good, right?
Yeah. That's what I've heard too. I don't know any details, so.
Oh, and all sorts of issues.
Yeah, he had issues back and forth, and well, so has old Casey Stevens have had that too.
Not me, I was muted.
There's Joe.
Yeah. Just hope that they all recover. Yep.
Hello.
Hello, welcome.
Hi there. How are y'all?
We're good. We are real good. Cut this short.
Yeah, Jay's running the
Guys,
pre.
we got a reverb going on.
Uh-oh.
Reverb?
That is probably Joe, I guess.
Not
I think it was before Joe joined us. Hi, Joe.
Oh, okay, then it's not Joe.
Is it on my end?
I don't think it's my end because I have no speakers, only my headphones.
And it hit mute.
How about now, Casey? How about now, Casey?
No, that repeated itself.
I said that twice. That was me. I said that twice.
Yeah, I'm hearing it twice.
Really?
I'm hearing it twice too. Yeah. And I'm hearing it perfect.
Jay,
twice.
I think you have two mics on.
Yeah, it's not a kind of a
How about
distant
now?
reverb. Yeah,
How about
no
now?
repeat. Oh, that was a repeat. Yep.
Are we okay? You're still getting it twice.
No, not the last one.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay, not me.
We're getting double repeats.
Strange.
Yeah.
Joe, we don't normally have these kinds of tech issues.
No.
No, Jay is having techie. He's a techie today. Yeah.
You're still having it.
Yeah, I'm good now. So yeah.
You're good now?
I'm gonna reboot Zoom.
Okay. How about Anna? You're good now?
Yeah, I'm good. Yep.
Okay.
I'm good. Yep.
It could have been that previous ad page.
You never know. Yeah.
Yeah. Tonight.
It's always tricky when there's speakers and microphones in the same environment.
Yeah, man. I've only been doing this 5
then
years
it's
now.
always That's why.
Hey, Kai. Kai, can you hear me? Someone in the audience there.
Yeah, Mike is not at the desk.
Kai Brightwing's in the audience. I just wanted to see if they could hear me clearly.
Oh yeah, I
without
need
it
to
dumping
log
me
into
on
Twitch here. Yeah.
So we got a couple minutes here. There's an issue to work it out. Okay. No, you have no reverb there, Troy? That's good. Thanks. Well, that's good. One problem solved.
I resubbed before Patrick got me. Yep.
Oh, awesome, Anna. Before Patrick got you?
Yep.
Good,
I
Troy.
think he got me last month.
Oh, look at that. And he just hopped on, too. So, like,
Oh,
boing,
see,
he would have gotten you, too.
Yeah, he would have got
Boing.
me in a minute here or two. Yeah.
So Joe, it is. Welcome.
Oh yeah.
We'll be live in a couple minutes here. We're live now. We're just doing my ads for all the sponsors.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, I just need to log into Twitch so that I can sort of watch the feed.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Perfect. Yep. Well, you will see the video in that's Jay. He feeds the video to Zoom, so you see that.
Yeah,
with no
maximize
delay.
my panel.
Yeah. And then pop out chat.
Hey,
and
Rob
then
and Blue
run
Box,
chat
good
in
to
a
see
separate
yous.
window and
Hang in
yeah,
there.
then-
We're still 13 minutes before live. I'll try and cut it short.
Yep.
I'll
So,
cut
so
it.
you can pop out chat and then kill off the video window. That way you save bandwidth too. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's a little cog wheel down in chat. You can click on that one and there's a pop out chat. When you log
Good
in.
enough.
Good to see
Well,
everyone.
actually,
What's
figured
up,
it
Mr.
out.
Justinian Caesar? Good to see you all. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Figured it, Jay. I figured it out.
What was
Okay,
it?
good.
When I logged in to Twitch, it unmuted the channel,
There you go.
So,
so I was hearing the
reverb.
reverb, and it was me.
Well, at least it wasn't. Okay, that's good to know. That's
Yeah.
a long shot.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's all right. Stuff happens.
Hi, Joe. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. I wasn't sure I was going to make it, and then the weather conspired to make my vacation plans kind of go haywire, but you guys benefit.
Oh,
Well,
what were the vacation
okay.
plans?
Yeah.
I was driving from Yuma, Arizona to Colorado Springs, and I got up as far as Flagstaff and took a right on to I-40 and made it about 5 miles, and the traffic stopped.
The
Because
traffic
of
stop.
Oh my gosh.
wrecks and more wrecks. I looked at it on the map once I basically turned around, came back to the hotel for the day.
Wow.
And I looked at it, and there was 50 miles of traffic stoppage.
Oh my
Just
gosh.
due to how many wrecks there were due to the snow.
That was my next question. Is the weather really bad out there with snow?
It didn't seem bad to me, but apparently the truck that was towing
I'm having ad
like
issues
12 cars
galore.
that broadsided across the highway,
Oh, geez.
yeah, that you had that portion of the highway just stymied.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you're able to join us, and hopefully this will be a little mini vacation back in time to the Grand
Oh, sure.
March for you.
Back in the day.
Yeah. And you'll find that as we talk during the show, it's very free-flowing. Things are just going to come back to us. I tend to guide like the Living Greyhawk type questions. Mike and Anna and Jay are more canon experts. Obviously, Anna is the mapping guru of Greyhawk, and she's actually the only person we know of who's read 99% of the Living Greyhawk material because she incorporated events from Living Greyhawk into her maps.
Yeah. And it's still very good to have these sessions because there's always one or two things that I've missed that comes up every time we have this. So it's awesome. So yeah.
I was chatting with a buddy of mine last night back when we were doing the Greyhawk stuff. He was real big into the whole cartography and maps and that sort of stuff. And 90% of the work he did, but I gave him some thoughts and whatnot. And we ended up doing our own version of the Grand March, drifting up over to
Thank you there, Patrick.
Keeland, and down to, well, up to Bissell,
Bill.
down to Keeland.
Yeah. Grand Marsh had some of the best cartography during Living Greyhawk.
We're
You
coming
had
on a little live here because
something named.
That's high praise from Anna.
Yeah, some guy, I forgot, Yakuza, or something Japanese sounding name of some sort that did a lot of cartography over in the Shelmar Valley, and that was really good.
No, at least I don't know him by that name. So
Yeah.
it's possible I met the guy at some point or another. I was up and down the east coast of the constant area. So
Yeah.
you're ahead of the curve, Casey, like usual.
Yeah.
Have not gotten there yet.
So, Joe, if you're in the Twitch chat, I'm Ardrico, and Anna's typically in there as well, and Mike are in there. And there's a drawing. Jay will be giving away prizes to the audience. at
It's Giant
the
Classic
show.
DVD reprints. Cool. Yeah, Joe's been on. We'll start a little early. So, another great Living Greyhawk discussion today, everyone. Good to see. Everyone is doing well. Kick off this week. Well, actually, we kicked off the week Monday. Hey, Taryn.
You did. Have you recovered from Sunday yet? Are we allowed to talk?
Well, there's no reason to talk about it.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll just.
It's painful.
Joe,
What
yeah,
happens in
Jay's
gaming
a
stays
Eagles fan.
Yeah. Yep. Live in South Jersey, right there, right near the 5-6 miles away from all the Living Greyhawk conventions. Never knew it. Right, Casey?
Yeah.
They're on the other
yeah,
side of the bridge, right there.
You were-
right there at the convention.
That was Keeland, right?
Yeah. It should stay, but it never does, especially on this channel. Nothing happened Sunday.
I'm very excited because Grand March is one of the last, if not the last, U.S. regions.
Oh, really?
To dive into on this show. I have to double check my tracker.
What about Hawaii and Alaska and stuff?
I mean, we kind of got parent land with the Aussies.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And also, I think like Jonathan Dawes and some of the Canadians had, their stories about Radek. Their pitch for Radek. Now, when it comes to the Grand March, for the audience, Grand March was Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina.
Okay.
So, in football terms, that's deep in the heart of the SEC
I'll say.
country.
Oh, heresy. ACC, thank you.
Oh, well, you're North Carolina, so.
Yes,
that's
North Carolina. If Jeff was here, he would be frothing because he gets very upset because he's a South Carolina guy. And he goes, why does North Carolina get called Carolina? I said, because we had it first.
Yeah, maybe
That's
instead of first
apparently
in like North and South Dakota, it should have been First Dakota, Second Dakota, First Carolina, Second Carolina.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. On a Wednesday night, Legends and Lore, I'm J.K. Lore Gazumba, and on a Legends and Lore, we have usually the great Anna Meyer, the legendary Greyhawk Mike Bridges, and the Bandit Kingdom Triad legend, and all around
I use impersonator or Kranzer Boneheart impersonator.
Yeah.
Yes,
Boneheart member. Yeah.
Casey Brown. But special guest tonight, Joe Jungers. Joe, welcome. Our other guest is an accountant. What was the gentleman's name there, Casey? And he may not be
Jeffrey Cars.
Jeffrey, and he may not be able to make it, but that's okay. We're gonna have a fun time.
We're hoping
tonight.
for a late arrival from Jeffrey. Work has kept him late.
Yep, but we still have plenty. I have plenty of great things to share from this legendary era of Greyhawk. And Casey says this is the last United States-based group we have not gotten to.
I'll have to check that, but that may be accurate.
That's cool, man.
Yeah,
that is cool.
We've had a lot of these shows over the past few years, so I'm really glad that.
Yeah, we had Zeef. Absolutely, we had Zeef. Zeef was awesome.
Yep.
Zeef was the Rotic, then right. They went Rotic, then Zeef. Is that what happened with the Canadians, like Indicarus and those? We've had a lot of interesting stories, and we're going to keep them rolling here. And thanks for everyone for coming on. I want to note something before we really get rolling. We're getting there. We are already at $637. So we're under 20,000 to go to beat last year. Woohoo! For the fundraiser.
Yeah.
So we haven't really even officially started.
Good start.
We have not officially started. Please note, if you're on, we start officially tomorrow night. Tomorrow night is I'm running a kickoff game, and it is going to be a blast. And that is I've given it away already, but it's from year one, which we did the Orbs of Dragonkind, and the bad guy was a Miracle the Chaotic. So it's going to be the revenge of a Miracle the Chaotic, a one-shotter tomorrow night with my guy, so I get to kill them all. But Tim will complain, but that's okay. But that's what we're going to do. We'll kick it off tomorrow night with that. So onward now to some legends. Joe, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you, Joe. Exclamation point drawing, Joe.
Exclamation drawing, yes. Exclamation point drawing will get you in.
Not a one.
Yep.
Okay.
Exclamation drawing. I got a whole bunch of reprints tonight to give away. We'll see what we got here. We have a Deep Dwarven Delve, a Ghost Tower, Against the Giants, Shokanth, one of the best adventures ever written, the Forest Oracle. That was a joke. But it may be you got Needle. I don't know. That one's another one. But you all can make that decision on your own.
Joe, is it Youngers or Jungers? What's the
last three generations have gone with the J sound, so Jungers is what we go with.
Okay, and then
my great grandmother was the last Jungers.
Okay, very cool.
Okay, and then Jay, to correct myself, there's one U.S. region left that we have not yet had, And we should always remember this because it's the Principality of
Oh, well, we don't want them anyway because they
Ulick.
really screwed that region up.
So Joe, Jay's home game is based out of the Principality of Ulick. He's been running for like 40 something years. He's doing AD&D, 1E, 2E. He has mixed feelings about hearing about what happened to it.
They're not mixed.
But
I'm just kidding. We can
let's just dive in, Joe. How did you get into Dungeons and Dragons? How did you get into RPGA? And then how did you get into Living Greyhawk? Just tell us about yourself.
Okay. Starting with the earlier one, I made the mistake of sitting down at a Christmas dinner and picking up this box that said Dungeons and Dragons on it. And while everybody else was drinking and sitting around and chuckling, I was reading this book. And about halfway through the book, somebody went, "He picked up the book. He has to be the GM."
Oh.
So I was the GM for the first 2 years. I got into the RPGA after I got out of the military back in the very late 80s, ex-Navy.
Okay.
And I stumbled into Living Greyhawk and the RPGA about the same time during year one of Living Greyhawk. I was bored one day and happened to be wandering across UNC's campus. And there were some folks that I knew from other places that were wandering into a building. I went, "What the heck are you doing here?" They went, "We're going to play D&D." So I tagged along and there we go.
What year was that?
This was if we consider the first-ish year to be like year zero.
Yeah, we do. 2000 was year zero.
Sure. It was in the very early part of year one.
Oh, good. So you got right from the beginning.
Nice.
Pretty darn close.
That's awesome.
And UNC is University of North Carolina.
Yes.
I assume. Okay.
At Chapel Hill.
And you were there after the Navy?
I was there before and after the Navy.
Oh, interesting. I'm ex-Army.
Okay.
Yeah.
What MOS, if you don't mind my asking?
13 Bravo, cannon crew member.
Oh boy, tanker.
Close. Artillery.
Okay.
Yeah, towed howitzer.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah, I did electronic installations for shore-based communications. 6 years in the Navy. The only time I was on board ship was to visit my less fortunate friends.
So one of the things you just mentioned there jumps out at me immediately is UNC, right? And Living Greyhawk had a big following on college campuses. At Texas A&M, which is one of my alma maters, there is a pretty big role-playing group there, or there was in the 90s, early 2000s. I think they were called Cepheid Variable or something. And they hosted AggieCon and ProtoCon, two conventions hosted on the campus of the university. Rice University hosted OwlCon, and various other campuses in Oklahoma and Texas would host cons. So Living Greyhawk, I don't know about D&D Adventures League or Pathfinder Society, but Living Greyhawk was heavily involved in being played on campuses across the country.
Yeah. It was like, I guess in the 80s, it wasn't so much, not when I was in college, not so much. But then it got that resurgence. I don't know. That just was from my experience. But I think Living Greyhawk really did help that out a lot. So
cheap con space, right? The universities probably didn't charge a lot of money to use their space, to the student organizations, unlike a hotel.
Yeah, that's so true. So true.
So, Joe, how did you go from playing in year one to, did you volunteer? Did you write? What did you have experience with Greyhawk before Living Greyhawk?
I had a little experience with Greyhawk back in the day. The box set was one of my wonderful toys. I love the maps. Maps have always been something that have drawn me to the game. Give me a pretty map. That's how I got into Calamar. Their atlas was wonderful. Okay. But I started playing. I hung out with a lot of people that ended up being higher ups in the various triads that were part of our local-ish gaming crew. And towards the end of things, somewhere around, I think it was in late year 9, early year 10, one of our guys just finally said, "I am tired and I've had enough." That would be Will Dover. And this happened at a con. And one of my friends from down Georgia way, Paige Leitman, she goes, "Hey, Joe, you should sign up for this." I went, "Yeah, I'm kind of tied in. I know a lot of the people. I have an idea what's going on with the meta orgs since I've been working with the meta orgs, or a number of the meta orgs. And I was sort of a sounding board for a couple of the Triad guys for some of their plot stuff. So I said, sure.
Very cool.
Mhm.
And so when you became Triad, would you say that was year 2 or end of year 1?
Oh, God, this was like year 9.
Year 9?
No. Jeff and those guys were Triad at year 1.
Uh-huh.
And I was the very last Triad to be brought on board. Okay. Fact is, 2 days after I became Triad in Grand March, they announced they were killing the campaign.
Oh, so year 8, right? Living Greyhawk lasted 8 years.
There you go.
So in 2008, Living Greyhawk ended. So it sounds like you're talking about year 7, year 8. So they announced the end of Living Greyhawk. I want to say it was at a con in 2007 because they announced 4th edition, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the same
Although
time.
They promised us they would carry on with Living Greyhawk. They lied.
Yeah, I wasn't there at the big cons for that announcement, but I do recall them eventually telling us you have until the summer of 2008 to release X number of adventures, and they will still be downloadable and playable through the end of 2008. And then after that, you're done. So, okay, you were a very late addition to the Triad. So we might actually have a Triad member here who doesn't have the massive burnout story that 95% of us have had.
So true.
So when you became Triad, what role in the BK? We had point of contact, meta orgs, and plots and editing. Did you guys do that too?
We did. When I came into it, Dennis Waltman was our plots guy. Man, he had some good ideas, but he couldn't write his way out of a paper bag. John Freeman was our point of contact, so I took over meta orgs. Since mostly what I had been doing was meta org stuff anyhow.
Gotcha.
Well, we have a lot of those in the PDF here.
Well, that's good because in a future show, we would love to do a deep dive into the meta orgs with you and maybe your predecessor who worked on meta orgs or anyone else who is Triad from the region that we can get a hold of. Real quick, you mentioned Calamar. Were you involved in Living Kingdoms of Calamar?
Yes, indeed I was.
Oh, wow.
Were you like admin or what?
Oh, no. I played, and we had a few guys locally that played Calamar, but Calamar kind of ranks up there for me as my first real online play experience.
Oh.
Because most of the folks that I played with were folks I had met at like Gen Con or Origins, and we started playing via AOL with the chat bots, the chat bots. And we had a lot of the writers and whatnot that were willing to come online and run games for us. So that was fun.
Okay. And for the audience, let's just tell them a little bit about Living Kingdoms of Calamar. Who published Calamar? I always forget.
That was Kenzer Co.
Kenzer.
Okay.
Kenzer and Company. And Living Kingdoms of Calamar, it was your typical sword and sorcery sort of thing. I would say it was a bit more low fantasy, I guess. There was not quite magic as far as the prevalence of items I used to see in Living City or towards the latter end of Living Greyhawk. That really wasn't such a big thing. The campaign still used certs for treasures. And if you wanted something special, you had to meet up with somebody from basically the campaign at one of the big cons at one of their bazaars.
Gotcha.
Yep.
See,
Here's
the
Calamar.
Atlas
of Calamar 3rd edition.
Also Kenzer published a lot of adventures for Necromancer Games at the time, the K series, didn't they, as well? They did a lot in that 3rd edition realm. I'm almost positive. They did a lot of great stuff at that time.
Yeah, they had the so far I think is the best atlas ever produced for any role playing game. It's the maps themselves are gorgeous. They only have elevation and settlements and roads and some borders, so they don't show any of the terrain really, more than elevation. But I must say that the this one. It's a huge inspiration for me. So I'm sorry I
very
just
neat.
wanted to show the audience the book you fell in love with, because I like it. I love it too. It's a great book.
What's that atlas called again, Anna? We have someone in the audience.
It's the Kingdoms of Calamar Atlas. It's from Kenser Games, but it's an official 3rd edition D&D or 3.5 D&D product from Wizards of the Coast.
And we're doing a quick segue away from Living Greyhawk real quick,
That's okay.
because Joe has this vast, sounds like, other living campaigns experience, which we don't always get. Like, I didn't play Living City, but I played with people who bitched about it all the time. You know? I played a little Living Arcanus. Let's just run through them a little bit. There was Living Arcanus, which was like set out in space kind of thing.
I don't know. That was one of the ones I avoided.
Okay. There was Living Death, which was Victorian horror.
Indeed.
If I remember correctly. There was Living.
It sounds like
Go ahead.
Cthulhu-like almost, no?
It was more like the Mask of the Red Death.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right. There was Living Force for Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously Living Kingdoms of Calamar, Living Greyhawk, and I'm trying to think. I feel like
there was they didn't call it Shadowrun missions. It was Shadowrun.
okay.
Living Seattle. That's what it was.
Living Seattle, right, for the Shadowrun people. And I think even the Book of Five Rings, or what was the Asian themed Five Rings setting?
Legend of the Five Rings.
The Legend of the Five Rings may have had its own living campaign as well. So at this time, in the early 2000s, really was a big boom in living campaigns. And really right now, as far as I know, there's D&D Adventures League and Pathfinder Society for Second Edition, neither of which I'm involved in. So if there's others out there, please put them in the chat, people. That'd be
Troller
cool.
Games is going to have play too.
Yeah, and Pathfinder organized play has been around for well over 10 years now. So,
Well, yeah, that's why I was just saying Pathfinder Society. I played in 1E Pathfinder Society.
Yeah.
I didn't transition to 2E. So, Joe, you become a meta coordinator in year 7. Had you done any module writing or anything before that?
Nothing that ever saw print.
But that's okay. I'm assuming you were a very active member in the group, so for the whole time, correct?
Barring that first 6 months or so.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's good.
So, give us a quick high-level view of the Grand March during Living Greyhawk from years 1 to 8. Just like who was the leadership? What got changed maybe from the Living Greyhawk Gazetteer, because a lot of regions nuked their leaders or killed them off.
No one killed them off.
What was going on? What was the Grand March's overarching plots like?
Oh my gosh.
Well, I wasn't involved in this because apparently at the start of Living Greyhawk, they brought in the triads and said, well, we're going to have conflict between the regions. And you guys you need to get your plots together and work out these things to where we can have interregional conflict, because that'll drive plots. And that didn't go over very well. So we had a couple people quit over that. And there were other people in other regions that were not so happy with this. Grand March thought it was cool, because if there was one thing Grand March is military. Grand March, service, citizenship through service. If you're a woman or an elf, you can get out of being in the military. Otherwise, you're going to serve at least 3 years. And it was so bad. I'm sorry, not bad. They were so dogmatic about it that the sailors from Keeland wouldn't come on shore because they were tracking how many days they were on shore in Grand March. And if they were on shore enough time in Grand March, I believe it was 2 years, they would get conscripted.
Wow. Yeah, thank you for visiting. Here's your sword and shield.
Yep. You've impacted our tax base enough that you're going to join our militia. And then, you get done with your military service. Most people got out and went off to their little farms. And every week they would have their militia meetings and whatnot. And they'd go out and practice in the field with their spears and whatnot. And it was just a very militant sort of place. And outsiders look at it and go, what the heck? And the people from Grand March would go, what do you mean other places don't do this?
Right. Yeomanry did a very similar in that they had the citizen militia kind of army, and you had to earn your citizenship by serving in the military, if I remember correctly.
Yeomanry was the nicest place we've ever heard of in the world in that Living Greyhawk discussion. I was
when
shocked.
We had August Hahn on.
They were so kind.
Yeah, they had very few monsters. I got to play in the Yeomanry because they were physically next door to Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So that's where my second home was, kind of. But yeah, we used to call Yeomanry the land of milk and honey.
Nice.
So
yeah, it was they were the odd ones. They had that weird government called democracy.
Yeah, absolutely. So Joe, I know we had Geoff on Jeff a couple weeks ago, and they said that there was some kind of dim force conflict between Gran March and Jeff during Living Greyhawk. And he said you guys were a bunch of schemers or something. That's if I remember. That's what they said. That's what.
Yeah, you're talking. It was David Quick and Shalom West, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, we've had them on.
Yeah, but it was actually Eric Mengi, if I recall correctly, said that.
Mengi.
Yeah.
Mengi is such a mensch. Great guy. Great guy. I love his plots. He was much more into the whole Fae plot.
Yeah, absolutely.
They had two plot guys, and he was the one that did the Fairy Realms plot. And I believe they had Mark Judson that handled most of their giant-based plots.
He was on.
Right, Mark was on recently.
I apologize. He's the one that called you that, the schemers.
Right, because he was on recently.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
but I believe Mark came into the position a little late too.
Okay.
Not as late as I did, but I don't think he was part of the initial triad. And part of you remember how I said there was going to be conflict between the regions?
Yeah.
They established conflict for us in this little town down on the southern part of that red line in the Deep Forest.
Yeah.
Little town called Hawkok.
What is it? What's it
Hawkok.
called? Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Little town of Hawkok, and it was
it's on there somewhere.
It is down, I think, just to the west of that shield.
Zoom in there. You got it.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, Hawkok Dim Forest, right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And so when Jeff got overrun by the giants, there was a lot of basically Jeff's idea of dealing with problems like that was to grab their bows and head for the woods. And so they pretty much abandoned most of their towns to not give the giants anything to fight. And then they would sit back and snipe from the woods and maybe take some giants down, maybe not, but it was their survival strategy. There were still some folks in Hawkok, though, that stayed there. And Gran March kind of looked at it and went, those people need protecting, and moved military in there to help protect them. Well, the folks in Jeff really didn't want protecting. So there was that whole problem of, you should go away. We don't want you, but we're here to help. And it went back and forth like that for years. In the end, though, I think they ended up ceding Hawkok to Gran March and ended up getting a large plot of land down on the western edge of Kiel and eastern edge of Jeff down. Down in that area, down along the river. I was never a big one for Welsh, so trying to remember what all those Welsh names are.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, isn't there? Cairnglis, Castle Blue. So you're saying that Hawkok is not in Jeff now? Is that because this line states that it is?
I'm at the time the campaign ended. I believe that that Hawkok and the province that Hawkok was in had fallen under rule of Gran March.
Wow.
And oddly, I think that Gran March had actually picked up a little plot of land down on the coast.
Mm-hmm. That was the Kentrev of Bloodrin Kane or something like that down there. So there was some back and forth. I decided to not get myself too deep involved in the plot line of it. So
I kept it.
I kept it a bit. So because when I sent out the first ones, people that hadn't gone deep into LG, they were like, no, that doesn't. So I was like, okay, well, mix it back again. So I took the settlements and kept the borders. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I know they mentioned it a couple of weeks ago when we had them on about Hawk and this
Right.
storyline.
Yep.
So was this in the course of like conventions or just adventures? How did how did that happen?
Okay, there was one big thing that I sorely missed from the days of living Greyhawk. It was cross-regional conventions.
Right.
Ooh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we had a lot of in Grand March and up in Jeff were battle interactives. They would be one time, it's only going to be run once ever. Everybody participates, it shows up that wants to, and it has significant effect on the ongoing plot. And there were all sorts of plot elements that ended up dealing with the giants, dealing with the Fae. Granted, I know a lot more, sadly, about the Jeff overall story arc than I do about my own.
That's it.
Because honestly, I wished I'd lived up in Virginia. Their stories were great.
Virginia was
And
Keeland.
we heard about that in
Wasn't
Texas and Oklahoma.
Oh no, Virginia
really?
wasn't Keeland. It was Jersey, Delaware, PA that was Keeland. Okay, yeah.
And New York.
And New York, yeah, big region.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. I mean, heck, there was a big online presence on do you remember the Yahoo groups?
Oh yeah.
Jeff had an online Jeff thing, which was basically not canon. In character.
In character.
It was in character stuff. If you said it, bad things happened. And there was one Yahoo in one of the bars. It was the something or other boar. They were having this discussion back and forth, and I use this and I use that. And
Britt
suddenly
and
at
I-
one point, yep.
That was so. Britt and I controlled the NPCs. I controlled Lord Obney, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
When he showed up to that, we actually, like Britt and I were. I don't think we were roommates at the time, but we were close friends. And Britt was a circle member, I think, by then when that happened. So yeah, the Joff online Yahoo group in character. We did a similar thing in the BK because we were kind of inspired by that. We couldn't read every word, but when someone said something ridiculous, we ended up killing their PC in an interactive.
Nice.
It was fair. All dice were rolled, but anyway, Joe. So,
but anyhow, I'm sitting there in one of my characters. I had characters in a lot of different regions. One of them was it's another one of those Welsh words. He was a wood elven ranger from the Olwithi Gan Giref, which were the Rangers of Jeff.
Yeah.
And he was sitting in the bar having a conversation with somebody. And there's this knucklehead over on the side who is, I use this and I use that. And all of a sudden, there's a break in the middle of our conversation. And I think it was either Mark Judson or Eric Mengi goes, stop, everybody stop. Out of character, stop. Things are happening. We need to deal with stuff.
Right.
And about 10 minutes later, the place shook. The smell of sulfur came into the air.
Brox.
And it wasn't Vrox. It was a crack in the earth. And the voice came, who summons Ayus?
That would have been Britt.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm positive that would have been Britt. I just couldn't remember if we threw the Vrox. We were in love with the Vrox Dance of Ruin. And what we like to do was have invisible. The third edition, right? The Dance of Ruin would do 20 dice 6 damage to everyone within 30, 60 feet. Or so, it was astronomical, but the Vrox had to dance for 3 rounds. So if you took a Vrock out and there were only 2 of them, they couldn't finish the Dance of Ruin. So in the DK, you just made the Vrox invisible or greater invisible, depending on the using support.
Cheating.
And then they would do their dance invisibly.
Right.
So I thought we had tried that in this scene you're describing, but I remember it was a bar and I remember all hell breaking loose. And
I am never going to be accused of cheating ever again, because if you can't see them, then it's not happening, right?
It's a dance.
Oh my gosh.
You don't need to see if a bear shits in the woods and you don't see it, the bear still shits in the woods.
If you can't see him, it's a Schrodinger's rock.
Oh my gosh. Holy jeez.
It's the Dance of Ruin, not the Mummer's Play of Ruin.
Oh my.
But anyway, Joe, so Mark Judson was Joff Triad from end of year 1 through year 6, according to my notes. Just
seems about right.
Very
just
cool.
taking a look at that. So
You gotta appreciate that.
Jake, Hawkok, is that the town that gets destroyed in the the novels and taken over by Loth, or is that some other town?
No, that's up here in Starrich.
Oh, Starrich. Okay.
Yeah, that's Starrich.
Yeah.
Oops, I went the wrong. Yeah, I went the wrong.
Mike, you look like you wanted to jump in. No. Okay.
You're thinking of Istanen.
It's right here.
Thank you. Yep,
right there. You know what?
So,
I'm like, I'm moving the map around. And I don't even have it on that screen. Oh my gosh.
so what were Grand March adventures generally like? Were they political, or were they just you're in a military unit, go kill a monster, or go free a town? Like, what did the Grand Marchers as a region tend to do?
Later on, they diversified a bit. Very early on, they were very military centric. No big surprise, they'd be in the Grand March. But my first experience with living Greyhawk was going to a con and having some guys come down from Virginia for this. And they were very upset when their geary characters got forced to go through boot camp and had to do things like go on patrol and dig latrines and things like that. And,
awesome.
Having been in the military, I never had to dig a latrine, but I understood the concept. So
you weren't in the infantry.
Yeah, true. I was not in the infantry.
Or the
Navy
army.
doesn't really have to dig latrines. They have this thing called the ocean.
Oh.
But anyhow.
Wow. That is that's pretty. So they didn't just let them use their time bars or whatever. They
time units.
Time units to join up. They had to actually do it. Wow.
Yeah, well, they weren't forced to join the military, but if they wanted to participate in that mission, that's what that mission was. And it was basically they were basically going on patrol. They started in Shibboleth and they were headed for eventually over towards Orlane, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And then they had to go through Fort Endurance and all this other fun stuff.
Like a low-level adventure. Go patrol.
This was year one, so everything was low level. It was
right, everything was low level in year 1, yeah.
I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
okay. So what were they patrolling? What would they find when on patrol?
What they were patrolling was mostly they were patrolling the dim forest because the dim forest was full of, elves, the dim forest elves. And the dim forest elves were not happy with the Grand March because the Grand March decided that if they were going to go and set up a military path, a military corridor from their capital in Shibboleth all the way through to Orlane, they needed to be able to have a wide enough road and a clear enough road that they could transport troops safely. In their mind, what that meant was they wanted to have the road cleared to 300 yards on either side. So there was a lot of clear cutting of forests and things like that.
That's a quick way of pissing off elves.
Oh, yeah.
So we talking about this road right here through Fort Endurance?
Yep. That is it. And the Grand March, they brought in loggers and they cut a swath through the dim forest like nobody's business. The first battle interactive I went to was run by one of our triad guys named P. Wins. And it was set in Fort Endurance. And people were coming out and basically putting together Rube Goldberg devices to build tree cutting things. And we had one gnome that came out with his steam-powered tree cutter that got out of control. And that was the combat for that one, was trying to stop the machine before it killed everybody in the fort.
Oh, I love that.
That's really cool. That's inventive and unique. That takes the Tinker Gnome concept. Mm-hmm. And obviously in 3rd edition, you could have animated objects and golems and just reskin them, restat them, or, advance. In 3rd edition, you could do some really crazy things with the advancing and whatnot. So that's just visually like really a neat idea.
Yeah. But like I said, we started out with being fairly military centric. As time went on, the military branched out a bit. They went into Jeff to basically stage not assaults, missions against the giants to help out the gearing. Okay. They ended up going where it wasn't Bissell was to the north, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes.
There were some incursions from up in the northern area because up on the northern side of Jeff, there's a place called the Valley of the Mage.
Yep.
And sadly, that is the first thing I ever knew about Jeff. At the time, though, I misspelled it. I mispronounced it. I always thought it was Geoff.
That's how I pronounce it to this day.
So we've asked the guys from Geoff or Jeff and it was said both ways apparently by no one seems to know. Like if it were American person name, it's Jeff. I've seen G-O, Geoff as just Jeff.
Let's ask Mike. Mike, what are your thoughts?
Jeff.
Okay.
Yeah, but my first experience with Jeff was from the April Fool's issue of The Dragon many, many years ago with a stupid little song called The Valley Elf. It is one of the few songs I still remember verses to.
That's
sad to say.
That's a shame that that's embedded in your brain, but that's kind of fun.
Yes. North of Geoff, south of Ket, by the river Jovan wet, in amongst the stubby gnomes, the Valley Elves do make their homes. Because he's a Valley Elf. Yeah, he's a Valley Elf.
Wow.
Those are the days.
That really got planted into your brain, Joe.
It did. It did.
So
to the point where at one point he goes,
wow.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You guys slaughter elves in this interaction?
I was about to ask, did you guys fight elves?
Like, this is awesome. Like
there were some, they had elven mercenaries and elven assaulters that would come down. I think we eventually, there were talks of bringing the Dim Forest elves on the east side of the river, east side of the border, into the control of Grand March. But it eventually got to the point of where it was just too chaotic.
They're Sylvan elves too. They're not higher gray. They're Sylvan.
Well, they could have been wood, right?
Wood is Sylvan.
In third edition. No, third edition had separate sub elves for Sylvan and wood.
Oh, okay.
Right.
And Greyhawk.
And so we ended up getting and cutting a deal with the hobgoblins to come in and deal with the elven problem for us.
That sounds backwards. In most, heroic fantasy campaigns, the humans team up with the elves to fight the hobgoblins, not the other way around. So I love that.
I think if you flip open the book and look at Grand March, their general alignment is lawful neutral.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is.
Yep.
Emphasis on the law.
And hobgoblins are very lawful.
Yeah. I love using the hobgoblins in the BK as lawful as opposed to the orcs who are just chaotic and stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Chaotic stupid is a great alignment.
Alignments for Grand March, lawful neutral, and then lawful good, and then neutral were in that order kind of thing.
Hey, there's always a solution to a problem, right? I guess they and the Rushmores are right there, so you probably have they came from somewhere, the hobgoblins. Wow, that's an interesting.
The hobgoblins, I think, actually came out of the Dim also.
Yeah, they probably did.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah.
So
because
Dim Forest is huge.
Go ahead.
It's bigger than you think.
So at the start of Living Greyhawk, presumably his most resolute magnitude, Magnus Vrianian, Commandant of Grand March, was in charge. This is the Gazetteer.
Indeed. Lawful
good male human, Wizard 9 Evoker, Cleric 3 of Hyronius, a very kind of unusual spellcasting build for third edition.
Indeed. He was also the local head of the Knights of the Watch.
Oh. Okay. So did he remain in charge for the whole campaign?
He remained in charge for up through about year 6 or so, when he had an unfortunate encounter with some rather virulent poison. And while we did manage to get him brought back, he felt that since he had died in office, he wasn't fit to actually serve in office anymore.
Oh.
So then there was a big push towards the end of things of electing a new commandant. I had to beat our plots guy over the head to convince him that this guy that he wanted to put forth and eventually become the commandant would just be met with revolt by the players. Because this guy was, what the reveal that Dennis wanted to do was, after this guy got put up for it and elected and put into the position as the commandant, it was going to be revealed that he was in fact a cleric of Hexor.
Yes. Multi-arms.
As they should be.
Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't know there was a lot of Bandit Kingdom influence in Grand March at the time. But
really?
Hyronius was the big guy.
Right.
Well, I think Hyronius was the big one.
Well, that's who the commandant was a cleric of, according to the Gazetteer.
But Hextor makes just as much sense.
I mean, if you're militant and you're lawful neutral, you could either go honorable combat Hyronius, or you could go get the job done combat.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. But by this point, we had gotten the word that the campaign was shutting down.
Oh.
And, if we'd actually put this guy, his name was Narlathotep. I'm sorry, that is not correct. That's a different one. Nolarthotep was the guy's name. If he'd been put in place and we still had a few years to then go through and have the reveal that he was a Hextorite, and then deal with the situation and see all the conflict between Hyronius and Hextor.
Right.
And I think it would have been an interesting play to see how all of that worked out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That would have been great. But since we were under the gun to get things done by a certain time, I just really didn't see that it was going to be a viable solution. So we ended up eventually putting Grand March's favorite son, who was also a cleric of Hyronius and a Knight of the Watch, into the position. His name was Grant March. His parents had great aspirations for him.
Apparently. In PC or retired PC?
Oh, he retired PC. He was an author of several. He was an author of several modules. Sean Flaherty of the Brennigan series.
Really? He wrote the Brennigan? I've told Jay.
Oh, yeah, we've heard that story.
Brennigan.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Heard that story multiple times, which is fun. It's a good story. Definitely. Very cool. Very, very cool.
So we wanted to do a Hyronius versus Hextor thing in the town of Alhaster in Red Hand on the near div, because in canon, Zeech is a cleric of Hextor, and then I had this idea that he was a fallen cleric of Hyronius because he was formerly of the Shieldlands. And then by the end of Living Greyhawk, he had reconverted back to Hyronius, but he had a Temple of Hextor built while he was evil, and he started building a Temple of Hyronius right next to it. He didn't demolish the Temple of Hextor because really you kind of need both in that Iridian Great Kingdom remnant society, so to speak. And isn't there a lawful neutral sibling allegedly for Hextor and Hyronius that never gets used?
No.
I thought there was. The audience is gonna.
There's supposedly a third one.
Stratus,
but he's dead. Is he dead? Is he not dead?
Okay, well, we didn't use that in Living Greyhawk.
Yeah.
But in my head, I think there should be all three. I think it'd be really cool. You have three different war gods for
we do. We
honorable, get the job done, and just slaughter the hell out of women and children.
Mm-hmm.
We do. Yeah. We have one. We poured it in for Forgotten Realms. So. Yeah.
One thing outside of the military, the Grand March ended up doing plot-wise that was kind of interesting in my opinion, was they had a religious schism between the various sun gods. Because Grand March's sun god is Foltus.
Not Palor.
No, Palor is a Flanish god. And Grand March is much more of an Iridian sort of base. But almost all the PCs that played clerics of the sun god were Palorites.
Yeah.
That's good.
Palor was very powerful in third edition terms for the domains he gave access to in the prestige classes that they allowed Palorites to take. So it was very difficult, in my experience, to get clerics to look at other light gods. Foltus, sure, but Lydia turned out to be a pretty solid choice for some of the players I knew. Sorry.
Yeah. But the Fultons didn't get off on the best foot when some of their more militant members decided to deal with their counterparts by going and basically during one of their services, locking the doors and setting the place on fire.
Foltus's way, how's it go? Cold weather is Foltus's way of telling you to throw another heretic on the fire.
Right. Yeah.
There you go.
Nice.
I got it.
And I think we heard about player versus player combat was not allowed in Living Greyhawk except under very special controlled circumstances, or if your PC failed a saving throw and you were dominated. Right. The bad guy in the dungeon master would tell you what to do. But I believe the Foltus, every once in a while, Foltus cleric might walk up to another character that was annoying him and just say, You must walk in the light and then cast a light spell on their helmet so that they're blinded, because technically it's not an attack, but it's right in their eyes.
Right.
Fulton.
Yeah. So, but the
Fultians are banes to everyone. Because they're such, and I don't know when, like, we tried to figure out when this happened, and we think it was like just Sargent just decided we're going to go ultra lawful neutral aspect, because in the early days of 1E, Fultus was a lawful good deity. Like, you know how St. Cuthbert's lawful good and neutral? Well, Fultus was the same way, but everyone played him as lawful goods, and then all of a sudden when From the Ashes came out, there was this crazed theocracy of the pale, right, Anna?
Things change.
Yeah, I understand that, but
right,
yeah.
they're looking for gaps in.
I think it's cool. Yeah,
for alignment structure and to create tension in the setting.
Yeah,
but the Fultus, what I'm saying is the Fultus cult sects, they get along with no one. No one. I mean, the Tritharians are their mortal enemies, right?
Well, of course, chaotic good.
They don't get along with Palor. They don't get along with any of the good deities. They don't get along with Saint Cuthbert. They hate only. Yeah, let's just.
I think one of the ideas behind it is this is my speculation, is why the Sargent did it, and it's probably because he wanted a reason for the Palites to have kind of turned into it. So it seems to be, in my opinion, that he had them as sort of religious exiles. They got extreme, and therefore they were back in the day not that popular in the main Great Kingdom. So they kind of gathered up there the lawful neutral ones, so to speak, that had that extreme view. That was my sense when I read it, between the lines, so to speak. So and to me that makes an interesting tension in the setting, and not the usual evil ones, so to speak. So in my campaign, they've gone full evil now. They're lawful evil now. So they're gone extreme, so to speak. They've gone down the rabbit hole of having their religious purity and throwing heretics on the fire and all that, and so they're evil. So and they it was the clergy that managed to seduce the god to become evil, because he realized that, I don't want to lose all my followers, and so they tempted him and he fell for it. So yeah.
So what else? Grand March adventures, like, did you have dragons meddling in the affairs of men instead of vice versa?
Yeah.
Not so much in the way of dragons. There were a few dragons here or there, but they weren't the main thrust of things. Undead. We had a fair amount of undead, which gave something for the Palorites and the Fultons to do.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, trying to make an encounter for undead was always tough, because with the Radiant Servants of Palor,
that prestige class was so broken.
Oh yes, if there was,
and we all told them, we said no, and they forced us to accept it.
Yep, and because if there was a Radiant Servant at the table, the encounter was trivial.
Right. If
there wasn't a Radiant Servant, the party died.
It was deadly. Yeah.
Wow, it was that higher up.
Yeah, the cleric, it got martial weapon proficiency, right? The Radiant Servant, which made no sense, but it also got like +4 to turning and spells as a cleric. And it just, if you go and look up the Radiant Servant, it's a classic example of how not to design a prestige class for.
I seem to recall they had like maximized healing, and they also had a lot of sun-related spells, which are not generally the things that the undead like.
Yeah, so it goes back. Second edition's specialty priest of Palor has a lot of abilities, like +1 to level and turn, which is a minor thing, being able to turn fifth level cleric or sixth, and then Sun's Sphere, which give you a lot of those spells, but nothing that like blew up
breaks.
Yeah, blew up everything. Right, now so it sounds like with the max healing, there's like a healing cap of a loon. There's some magic items that do that, but I didn't know that an ability was you get max healing. That's really nasty.
I think there was a limited number of times a day.
Yeah.
It was because it was the domain spells you got for the healing domain were considered maximized. So, that was only like
one spell per level.
Right.
But still, by the time you get the prestige class, you're 7th or 9th level, and
something like that.
Right. It just, I remember it 20 years later, is that and the one about the veils, the wizard with the 7-color Veils or the Fate Spinner. But anyway, that's a whole different show. Casey bitching about bad prestige class design.
It's fun.
No one would want to watch
It's a good
that
one.
show.
Yeah. No. Yeah. We want to watch it
Because they'll be like, well, Casey's never designed anything. I'll be like, well, I've run hundreds of tables of organized play, and I can tell you what works and what doesn't work, what's broken and what's not. See, Wizard of the Seven Veils. Yeah, stupid broken.
They could build prismatic wall at will.
We'll get into that later. So, Joe, I'm trying to dig deep into
So
what did the middle level PCs do? What did the high level PCs do other than just go and help and fight giants?
I don't know exactly. It was the sort of things where we tried to gear various things to have comparable threats for them all at the various adventures. But we had monsters coming out of the swamps down in the Rushmores.
Oh,
Granted,
cool.
We had a lot of heroes coming out of the Rushmores too. There was an entire meta org based out of the Rushmores called the Cattail Clan.
Wait, I may have that. Let's take a look.
Yeah.
What's it called?
The Cattail Clan.
I'm almost positive. Yep. Clan Cata. Clan
Cattail?
Cattail. I got it. Let's go to that. Awesome. We have some of this stuff.
Yeah, we might do a little bit of an early deep dive into the Metaorgs here, since Joe, you were the Metaorgs guy.
Clan Cattail, the only real friends the Commandant has in the Rushmores. Okay. Very cool. We know of this. We of this clan know change. We live where even the very ground shifts. We live knowing the next threat to our lives could come with our next step. Yet, like the cattail, we bend in the breezes of fate. This is our strength. Cattail oral tradition. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first time I've seen that, an oral tradition done in an org. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The Clan Cattail has almost no structure. So is this like the bandits and the brigands from Alfred the Great when Ian McKellen led them? If you ever saw that movie from the late '60s,
maybe. I don't
Sounds
think
like
that was I don't think that was exactly where we were going.
okay.
Basically, jumping back to the first time I played in Living Greyhawk, one of my buddies, Ed Kosnowski, was there, and he was playing a barbarian who was going to be a barbarian wizard, who said he was from the Cattails. And eventually he got a couple buddies, myself included, that ended up making members of the Cattail Clan. And after a couple of years, we talked the organization into actually making it into a full-blown meta org.
Oh, cool. Again, living campaign.
Oh, yeah.
And so this was not a canon org that someone found in a book and said, oh, we should make this for Living Greyhawk.
I don't think so. I think it was just made whole cloth.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I'm looking to see headquarters
Yeah.
history.
Mhm.
The Cattail Clan is one of the oldest Flan barbarian clans residing in the Rushmores. Huh. I see these really Welsh names. Is that correct? There's a hardcore Welsh again. I
Yeah,
can't
because most of the people were people that escaped from Jeff and came over to the Grand Mark.
Wait, escaped from Jeff? Because Jeff
They basically fled Jeff.
Fled the
because
Giants.
They fled the Giants.
Oh, okay.
For other problems years ago.
Okay.
But that's during character creation, right? You're living in
Yeah.
the Carolinas or Georgia.
Sure. Yeah.
And so for your background, you're saying my guy is a refugee from Joff.
Yep.
Right?
Well,
Or
my
maybe
ancestors were refugees from Jeff from
Right.
a previous time when they had issues.
or maybe someone who used to live in Virginia moved to the Carolinas or Georgia and just liked that flavor because they've been immersed for it for so long. Maybe they created a new PC for it. Who knows?
Sure.
Look at there's some pretty stiff requirements here that I haven't seen in a lot of others. You must be at least 50% Flan, but there's some exceptions. Speak the Flan language, have at least one level of Barbarian, Cleric, Druid, or Ranger. I'm assuming there's subclasses of that, or am I wrong on that? There's some tildes
I don't think
next
they
to
had
it.
subclasses back then.
No, okay.
What's the tilde? There should be a translation for what the tilde means.
It's not two. The deities are Biori, Alana, Mayheen, Obadiah, and Paler.
Huh.
Mayheen's not widely accepted. That makes sense. Most Cattail Druids follow the old Flan, old faith, similar to Druids of Jeff. This is a role-playing godling, not a requirement. Okay.
And for the audience, these things were fan created. Like either the Triad drafted them, or we had people like Joe and his friends who said, we want to do a thing. The Triad approved it. And the Triad would usually say, well, you also need to do the work.
Oh, yeah.
We're way too overloaded with just mods and interactive planning to write everything. Like, that's how I got my start in Living Greyhawk, is I took over a meta org in the Bandit Kingdoms.
Look, you got Dirty Fighting, one of my favorite feats. I backed down to 1E2E.
Kick him in the nuts.
That's it.
Yep.
That's cool. Protectors have access to the following magic items. Quiver of Alana. Nice. Brutes of Striding and Springing. Nice stuff. That's cool. Yeah. Awesome. Who made this?
This particular meta org, it's the progenitor of it was Ed Toshnowski.
Okay.
The actual author of it, I think at the time, was Lyman Green.
Okay.
Who was also a member of the Cattail clan.
At its highest point, how many players you think were involved with it?
I think at one point we did our numbers and it was about 35.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And a lot of meta orgs we find out had 2 people in them. Like, I know Jeff had so many. Jeff had like 100 different meta orgs or something. I'm like,
Jeff had some where they later admitted, we have no idea if anyone ever joined this meta org. And I was like, you guys were just crazy.
Yeah, way too many. But this one's a neat one. This is neat. All right, let's see here. So, Joe, I'm going to go through some of these if you have any reference to them.
Sure.
Darren Elvers, Dim Forest Elves, Grand March Lortmal Dwarves, Grand March Military Benefits, Grand March Monk Meta Org. Hopefully Skagit's not around. Grand March Religious Meta Orgs, Grand March School of Hard Knocks, Grand March Surlock, Grand March The Corporation.
Okay. Why don't I start at the bottom one, since that was one of the ones that I was the head of.
Okay.
The Corporation.
Corporation. Awesome.
Yeah. So the Corporation came about because, I had mentioned before that everybody joined the military. And then when you got out, you did your militia time and whatnot, and you did your things. But at some point or another, this organization called the Knights of the Watch rolled in from somewhere else in the Sheldamar.
Right.
And recruited a lot of people that were knights from Grand March. And it very quickly became the higher ups in the Grand March military were all Knights of the Watch. And the Commandant was a Knight of the Watch. So it was always kind of vague as to where exactly the line was between serving the Knights of the Watch and serving the people of Grand March. And so there were some people that got together and said, we need to have some oversight. We need to keep an eye on these folks and see they're keeping our best interests in heart, at heart. And that's where the Corporation came from. Sadly, the Corporation split into 2 factions very quickly. There were the oversight people, my side of the folks, and then there was the organized crime side of things, which was being run by a guy named Brooks Banks out of Georgia.
So, thanks, Mike. So, I see lawful goods not allowed as an alignment. That's the only alignment that wasn't allowed. So, this was going to be another a bandit-style, loosely knit organization of adventurers to oversee the wheel of the commoner, right?
Yes.
To protect, and then some of them goes, we can use this to our advantage, and that's where the split occurred.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
And at one point, my character, the first character I had, who was a Sulish guy, and he really didn't fit into the Grand March either. His parents were from Keeland. At least that was my story. Got a bunch of people together, and there was stuff going on in Jeff. It was winter. They had spent all their money raising heroes back from the dead after a big battle interactive. And at the end of things, the guy, what is his name? The Grand Duke, basically raised deads for everybody that died. And then announced afterwards that Jeff was broke and couldn't afford to feed their people. And the winter was coming. They couldn't afford to do anything. So heroes started donating. And when one of the guys rolled in from Keelan and donated, tons of food, things were cool. When the Jeff heroes got together and started throwing in stuff, things were great. When my hero from Grand March donated 2,000 blankets, they had removed disease cast on them.
They didn't trust you.
Nope.
Wow.
Yeah. And then they did take the blankets afterwards. What they didn't realize was the boots I donated also had issues. No, there weren't any issues. I just basically pulled their leg on that one. But
so
some of the other meta orgs, unless
well, wait, I want to ask this. You guys gave your own members demerits in this, the law of demerit.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's funny. You could pay off as a fine. Senior members, 1,000 gold per demerit. Oh my gosh, that is awesome.
Sometimes
this is really detailed.
That's the only thing that people will listen to.
Yeah, money talks, right? The law of silence, the law of obedience, the pledge of brotherhood, the law against theft. So
you
how
had
did you
stat blocks in here?
There were stat blocks?
Well, the thing I'm looking at, the corporation members document, has Appendix 2, sample death mark assassins.
Oh yeah, you could hire those guys.
So I've never heard of any other region doing this. In the Bandit Kingdom, we created a mercenary from the meta orgs. Most of the meta orgs had a mercenary you could hire if you were a member of that meta org. Mm-hmm. And they came with their own character sheet and rules and things like that, which 5e people would now know as to be the sidekicks or whatever they call them.
Right.
But yeah, we did them by APL as well. We had them of various different levels. And for us, it was, you have a table of 4 players. 4 was the weak number in 3.5 edition encounter planning. And if you want to learn more about 3.5 edition encounter planning, you can read about it in my book, $9.95 on Amazon.
Shill.
Here it is.
Yeah, that was a good one. But this is really cool. I haven't heard of any other region that kind of had this idea. And I swear to God, I didn't steal it from you guys.
But the thing is, the Deathmark Assassins weren't folks you could just hire to go out and get anybody. Deathmark Assassins went after people that broke the rules in the corporation too many times. They were the final solution for people that had too many demerits.
So you couldn't hire them to come on an adventure with you?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
Dench the Cleaner. What a name.
Right. But so you've got NPCs in here. 3rd edition love the multi-classing. You've got this Rogue 4, Cleric 6, Assassin 2, 12th level NPC. But probably with the trickery domain if I don't dive into it too far, because that's what I would do with that build.
Probably.
Right.
Wow, that's cool. And they're going up in level as we go here. Rogue 4, Cleric 6, Assassin 2. Liliana of Divers. Oh, man, you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel there with Divers people. Nice.
Reach out to Joe Selby. Haven't heard from him in a while. So cool.
All right, let's hit up another one there, Joe. What do you want to discuss?
The Searlock. The Searlock was the militant branch. Well, it was basically the military's branch of spellcasters.
Okay.
Arcane spellcasters. It was basically the Arcane Wizard Academy.
All right, cool. Very neat.
Yeah, I think by the time we got done with things, the PC who was in charge of it had gotten so many he had shape changed himself so many times that he couldn't remember what his original form was. And mostly he went around wearing a hat of disguise so that people wouldn't realize that he was masquerading as a mind flayer, because he felt he would get more information from people during the interviews, although some of the interviews didn't make it out of the interview process. So
some of the PCs?
No. These were all NPCs.
So the interviewees, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the current Archdean is Kama Tholdir, 17th level. And there's 4 schools, deans. So, all right, we got School of Battle. So you got battle mages. Let's see, School of General Magic, School of Crafting, School of Sorcery. All right.
Yeah, the sorcerers were kind of looked down on in that school because it didn't take a lot of book learning learn how to be a sorcerer.
Yeah,
I don't like sorcerers as a class in 3rd or 5th.
Never incorporated them in my game, but that's okay. School of Crafting sounds cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And these were all NPCs created by the players or triad members who were interested in this meta org to help flesh it out and give it backstories.
I believe this one here was made by Will Dover. He was a MetaWorks guy from I think MetaWorks started somewhere around year 3 or so, at least in Grand March. And he built most of the MetaWorks.
Did these NPCs show up in adventures?
They get mentioned in passing at places. They'll hand out missions. They'll do that. During some of the battle interactives, they're the ones up on the parapets raining down fireballs on the masses while the heroes are going out to deal with special missions.
Like, what do you call that in theater? It's not off screen, but it's, it's just part of the setting. This guy's up there throwing the fireballs, and this guy's throwing the lightning bolts.
I'll do that, man, in grand scale combat because it's just so hard to,
right.
Battle system, none of those systems work. So yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to do that. But this is really good.
Yeah, he's got a ton of NPCs just named and with basic levels. He didn't go full Len Lakofka with full stat blocks for everyone, and including what they ate for breakfast that day.
Yeah, well,
not that I know of.
No one's
Len's spreadsheet.
Yeah, come on, Len's spreadsheet's gold, Casey.
I mean, that thing is just it's a simulator. He created an Excel spreadsheet that's like a holodeck.
Wow.
He's the same way with NPC stat blocks that I am with maps.
Yeah, so
We all have our things to get anal retentive about.
Yep.
That's very true.
So you have all right. So Surlock, it's in Hook Hill. That's cool. You got some really neat stuff here. On this one.
I mean, this is massive. Like,
yeah, they all are.
These documents.
These docs are all real big. A lot of appendices. Appendices. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's good. It's really well done.
We did have the circle come down on the Grand March about one thing. Early on, one of the things that we pushed through for being a member of the military, even if you were an active member or if you were in the militias, one of the things that you got was everybody was trained to use a bore spear. And we had it built in. I don't know, everybody is an infantryman sort of thing. And we basically, part of the Army document was that regardless of what class you were trained with the bore spear.
Oh, you somehow got proficiency with it?
Yep, they were just granted proficiency for spending their 13 TUs for the year. And the circle didn't like having wizards running around with a martial weapon without having to spend a feat on it. So
because the circle made rules, right, of what you can and can't give access to with the meta orgs and how much things should cost and their theories of game balance and whatnot. Like you couldn't give characters bonus feats or things of that nature.
That's such a, I'm sorry. I totally disagree with the circle there. That is such a flavor to your campaign thing you put in with this. It's a spear. It's not like it's a two-handed sword,
Even if it was a two-handed sword, if you spent 13 time units, you were sacrificing 1/4 of that year's play opportunities for that character.
I love the idea. So we have an Order of Ulick. What is the status Order of Ulick weapon? Come on.
The kumquat logs.
No, that's again. No.
It's not the trident, is it?
The Beck to Corbin.
Oh, okay.
Yep. A lot.
I mean, in the military, in the Army, I learned how to use a M16 in 8 or 12 weeks. I'd never shot one before.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's a great flavor change up. So what did you guys do? Did you go out? All right, we won't do it, and then just did it anyway.
We basically got forced to pull it, and so they were given the opportunity to. I think it was written in the organization that it gave them the opportunity if they wanted. You could take weapon familiarity with a weapon if you wanted to spend your feet doing that.
Right.
It just gave you role-playing justification to do it.
Yeah. Right. Gandalf used a sword. Yeah. So.
Yeah, but Gandalf was multi-classed.
We have when characters in my game, for example, get up 10th or above, they can take almost any weapon that would make sense. If they because weapons have special abilities, then right. So if it's a wizard and it's a short sword, I don't have a problem with it. But you got to be a higher level to start taking stuff outside your class. It's just
Well, in most editions, who gives a shit if the wizard has a short sword, pardon my French, when they can fireball you or they can do much other nastier things.
Casey. I agree.
Right.
I agree. But you don't want to, you don't want to start out with dual wielding longsword, short sword, straight wizards at first level, right? You don't want to do that. But
I mean, in the Forgotten Realms, you probably wouldn't.
Oh, don't say that. Ed's going to be upset.
Hey, I love having the fact that you have Ed on your show. I'm just talking about what the setting what has happened to the setting since he sold it.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
That's a story for another time. So I got, how about the General Grand March military? Let's talk about that if we can, because this is the base. Or these? It says any non-evil. So these aren't bad guys, but they're not necessarily good guys. Is that what Joe? The way it went?
Yeah. Well, for one thing, the campaign didn't allow for evil characters, so we had kind of had to build that in. I think if we'd been given the choice, we would have taken lawful evil.
Really?
Just because of the lawful aspect.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
But, because if you can get them to give their word, they will hold themselves to their word. As that was our understanding of lawful. So.
Oh yeah.
But
like to me that
the overall campaign didn't allow for evil characters, so it was a non-issue.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Casey's camp had evil characters in Bandit Kingdoms, didn't you?
We had people who were very, 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 very neutral.
Chaotic neutral, probably.
Well, we had all the flavors, but chaotic neutral historically, yeah. And they'd be chaotic neutral skirting that to where you'd have to have talks with one or two people every once in a while and be like, remember, you can't, you can't cross that line or we will have to retire your character. But we couldn't be at every table. There would be people playing in their mom's basement in the home games for Living Greyhawk. And if that group wanted to have evil characters, there's not a damn thing we could have done.
Right. Yeah.
Which one of my dream projects is actually to take Living Greyhawk adventures, but write them from the perspective of the Iusians, to where the Iusians are having to fend off the bozo adventurers who are trying to mess with their plans all the time. Like, I think that would be a fun evil campaign, but evil campaigns can be so difficult unless everyone at that table is a functioning adult.
Well, yeah. And that never would happen at my table.
No, you guys would be making dick and fart jokes while trying to rob each other and each other.
Right.
I just love busting on Jay's crew. I love them. They know that.
So this one seems pretty straightforward. You got some specialty units, mountaineers and stuff, and cavalry. You got all different types of military.
And we loved our cavalry.
Was there flying mounted cavalry too? I'm looking just to see.
That was not an organized unit. They were more special teams.
Okay.
Because not everybody could afford a flying mount.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I mean, like I said, these
they have to come from an adventure, probably. I don't think a meta org could say at this rank you get a Pegasus or a Griffin or a Hippogriff or whatever. It would have to come from an adventure, and I think the odds of the circle of proving that were fairly low most of the time.
Honestly, most of the people that had flying mounts were paladins.
Okay.
Because they could summon some crazy thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, okay. Mike, you've been quiet all night, just taking it all in. You got any questions?
Nope. I'm low key, just listening to Joe. This is good stuff.
These are huge. These are long PDFs, man. Long. 33.
I'm impressed. I wrote the BK stuff in the later years, and this is huge.
35 pages. This one is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Dear
nuts.
Lord.
That's crazy. That's just it's awesome. Neutral was the best evil alignment. Well, Jeff, if you say so. But
we did end up having to write something into the military organization because of one particular Jeff adventure.
Oh, let's hear this.
There was one of the Fae adventures where you're given the opportunity to be tempted by one of the Fae to wander off into the bushes for a little bit. And, nothing is actually spoken about what went on back there. But at the end of the adventure, there was a coin toss. And if you came up tails, about 9 months later, a fae shows up and goes, by the way, here's your kid.
Nice.
And so we had to write something in there because there were some of the PCs that came back that were pregnant. And we had to give them special dispensation from their military duties to not have to serve during their pregnancy. Or they got basically mommy and daddy leave. So instead of spending 13 TUs with the military, they had to spend 5 TUs dealing with their kid. And the other 8 would be military time. It was still 13 TUs, but.
Sure.
So wait, that was a crossover with Jeff?
It came because of a Jeff adventure.
You were reacting to another region, which was incredibly rare, despite the living moniker of Living Greyhawk.
Mm-hmm.
That adventure affected the Bandit Kingdoms. That Jeff adventure, I had a player come up to me one day and said, hey, when I was in Virginia traveling for school or work or visit, he went home for Christmas. And his character became a Fae baby daddy playing this Joff adventure. And he came back to me and he said, like, dude, I need some sort of resolution for this story. I'm not going back to Virginia. And I was like, well, that happened in another region. I have no authority to figure out what to do with this situation. And then it occurred to me, there was a player who some of y'all in the audience might recognize his name, Teos Abadia.
Yeah.
He's a big time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's a playtester for 4th edition, 5th edition. He's got a podcast with Sean Merwin, former Keelan Triad.
They just had that executive guy on that's causing all the problems.
Yeah,
Kyle Brink.
Dungeons.
Yeah.
So Teos used to travel to Houston for work, and he was a Joff player and I think adventure writer. And I would run Bandit Kingdoms games for him whenever he came to Houston because he was a nice guy. He'd reach out. I didn't, I was sure I'd love to run games for you. And so I'd get a local Houston table together and we'd go to Teos's hotel room or whatever. And we would play Living Greyhawk whenever he was in Houston. So one of these, I hear about this Jeff baby daddy situation. I reached out to Teos and I'm like, dude, tell me what this is all about. And he filled me in. And what we ended up doing was writing the only co-regional special mission, as far as I'm aware of, in Living Greyhawk history. A special mission was a one-off adventure written for one table. It was a terrible use of our resources and time in Living Greyhawk. But we could do special things like we could write an adventure about this Bandit Kingdom's character taking his baby back to the Fae realm so that it could meet its mom or meet its grandparents. Or I have the module somewhere because I co-wrote it with Teos. But very rarely have I ever heard, Joe, of other regions reacting to other regions' stories and plots, because for the most part, we were in cylinders. We were walled off from each other unless we did a cross-regional event or convention. So this is very cool to me to hear you referencing this event, which then tied into the Bandit Kingdoms.
Interesting. That's cool.
Awesome. Yep.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Well, we did. Oh, go ahead, Anna. I'm sorry.
I was just going to mention that Mastering Dungeons, that Sean Mervin and Teos Abadio, their podcast is fantastic. They won, I think they came second best at for Ian World's podcast
Really?
They came second. Sly Flourish was first, and Mastering Dungeons came second place, if I remember correctly. So I listen to them every week. They're fantastic.
Because it's a podcast and not a live stream. We won't even go there.
Well, they you can watch them on YouTube. They have a video version as well when they talk, as well as podcast.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry.
Teos is now mostly known for being a Forgotten Realms lore expert, but he's also a Greyhawk expert. And I've been, every time Sheldamar Valley Joff stuff comes up, I'm like, hey, Teos, come get in the audience and whatnot. But we should try and get him on maybe a Sunday gabbing and pick his brains about some things Greyhawk and whatnot.
He was also a spycraft guy, is what I knew him for.
Outside
of being one of the many archers out of Jeff.
Yeah, definitely. That would be a cool thing. Yeah. Wow, that's an interesting little side bar story there. Really, really was neat.
But as far as getting interaction between the regions, I guess I get the feeling Jeff and Grand March did a lot more of that than other regions did. Because I told you about Hawk and how the Giants had come in and done all these bad things, and Grand March had come in and basically pushed them back. Well, at one point, the Giants decided they were going to deal with this Grand March situation once and for all. And they got some of their high-level clerics to establish a gate from somewhere in the Giant lands into the Temple of Foltus in Shibboleth, in the capital of Grand March. And they came rolling out of there. Well, people realized there was a problem when the big doors, like 3-story doors of Foltus come whipping open, and the 3 high clergy are nailed to the door. They're quite dead at that point. And the Giants come rolling out into town and just start tearing things up.
Wow.
And that was one of the battle interactives. So they were coming in trying to take things over. They were trying to destroy infrastructure, this, that, all sorts of things. And we eventually drove them back and drove them through their gate and sent them back to the Giant lands. But man, the guys that were running the Giants, props to them. I wasn't involved in this part of the combat, but I watched one guy. The Giants are sitting there waving their goblinoid buddies to come running and get to the gate. Get out, we got to go. And as the heroes come running up and start swinging on the Giants, a number of the Giants start taking up attacks on the goblins as they're running past, so they can then cleave into the heroes.
Oh, dirty pool.
Oh, yeah.
Jay, if you zoom out the map, we can touch upon this cross-regional stuff a little bit. The Grand March and Joff were one of the rare examples of the regions being next to each other, both in Greyhawk and in the real world, right? Because Virginia borders North Carolina, unless I'm completely lacking in my geography.
No, you're right.
Right? For the Bandit Kingdoms, we did a cross-regional with the County of Ernst. Okay? County of Ernst is next to the Bandit Kingdoms, but geographically, the County of Ernst states were where's Nairon? Where am I at?
They're right here. It's all right here.
But they were Colorado, Montana, New Mexico, and Wyoming. So to do that cross-regional event,
oh my god,
we had to go to
hey, Gary.
Lubbock or somewhere near the panhandle of Texas to do that cross-regional convention. You had to be within 20 miles of both states of the border, of the state border, to do these cross-regional events. We did cross-regional events with the Yeomanry. The Yeomanry makes no friggin' sense for the Bandit Kingdoms to have a cross-regional event with on the Greyhawk map. But we did because the Yeomanry was Louisiana and Arkansas, and those border Texas. So in Shreveport, we could have a convention that was Yeomanry and Bandit Kingdom stuff. And then we did Divers because of Oklahoma bordering Missouri, and right? Isn't St. Louis Divers? Yeah. I mean, I've got it right here in front of me. I should just look it up. Where is Divers? It was Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, and Nebraska. So again, Divers and the Bandit Kingdoms aren't next to each other on the Greyhawk map, but we had a cross-regional convention with them. Well, I think it's really cool that the Grand March and Joff had this symbiosis going on.
Yeah, it sounds really good.
I've asked the Joff guys, what'd you guys do with the other regions? And they've all just kind of, meh. Maybe I'm missing that in my notes.
No, they talked about the Hawk thing a couple weeks ago. We had them on. Absolutely.
Oh, okay. See, my memory just sucks for those details.
The big one that I remember most was the Ket-Bissell War, right?
Ket and Bissell, right?
We heard this all the time. They were fighting over Thornwood over and over, right? And losing, and this whole area here. And that's how a lot of this stuff got built up. We heard about that when Bissell was on. So it's why here in Wyoming, even though I was in Ernst and regionally, it was way closer to go to Utah and playing Nairon, Fuzz says. So, understood 100%. That was one of the flaws of the system, I think. So, but it still was back in the day, man, we're all younger then. I guess you guys, a lot of people didn't mind traveling across country for these cons. They were, it just sounds like it was a fun time. He said, it really.
Oh
does.
yeah, we would load up in the cars and it was only a 6-hour drive from like Houston to Shreveport. And I say only here in New England, my friends are like, oh, it's 45 minutes away. That's too far, but their roads are crap up here. There's my shot at New England roads. For mass errata in the audience, Texas is nowhere near Montana or Wyoming. That's very true, but it is very near the other states in that region. The county of Ernst, where's my little cheat sheet? Colorado shares a border, right? And New Mexico, or New Mexico does.
You're correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, let's
New Mexico sort of connects the two.
Let's ask a couple of specific questions. So, anything in the Rushmores at all where Vecna's was from, tower and all that, or
One of my buddies actually built a adventure. It was a two-part. Well, it was basically a double adventure, where it was basically Vecna comes back, or at least that was our plan. And we didn't actually get that, but it was a big dungeon crawl. There was a lot of Vecna-related stuff, and I don't remember the guy's name, but Vecna's. I almost said it. I'll go ahead and say it because it's a horrible pun. Vecna's right-hand man. But anyhow, we end up finding one of Vecna's lackeys still in stasis down there. And he pops out. We have to fight him. But we're in there looking for information to help deal with the ongoing problem over in Jeff. Because, you're always looking for something new to go deal with the giants. And there were a lot of people in Jeff that were very upset when they got around to playing this because it wasn't a Grand March adventure per se. It was a Sheldamar Valley adventure, but it was set in Grand March, set in the Rushmores. And one of the things that you ended up doing in order to get into the final vault, there was this big sort of looked like a bowling ball with a hand carved out of it. And in order to get into the vault, you had to put your hand on the bowling ball, and it kind of enveloped your hand. And then you got teleported into the vault where all the cool stuff was. And your hand was on a necklace around your neck, not on your wrist anymore. So you basically ended up giving yourself was it Hand of the Mage or Hand of the... There were two different hand things. One was kind of low level, one was higher level.
The low level one was the elven hand on a chain, right? And I think that let you cast mage hand, right?
Right. And then the higher level one allowed you to wear an extra ring.
That's right. It did. It let you do the 3 rings.
Right. Except that there was a curse attached to this one that if you ever got your hand regrown, your super spiffy hand would disintegrate. So you were still limited to 2 rings. And, it's kind of cool right up until you get into the Jeff region where all these people played it. And 90% of the Jeff players are archers. It's really hard to run a bow with one hand.
So it sounds like we need to get you and some of the Jeff guys on just to have a show talking about how your 2 regions interacted, the meta-regional storylines, because we haven't really touched on that. But Living Greyhawk had regionals like Grand March, and they had meta-regional adventures, which would be Sheldamar Valley, and they could move through the various kingdoms of the Sheldamar, or they could just be set in one of them but have a larger story typically than would be appropriate for just a regional adventure.
Right.
So it sounds like that would be good fun to try and set you up with Mingay or Jose Ortiz or David Quick or Shalom or any of those guys.
They're all great guys.
Yeah, they're a fun group. They're a fun group. Yeah, because we'd love to see them talk smack to each other too, the regions, right, Anna?
It's fun.
The sad thing is I'd probably agree with most of what they said.
Oh, there's Gary Holian showing
up.
Gary's
been hanging out a while there, man.
Oh, yeah.
I missed it. Gary, who wrote Grand March in the Gazetteer?
Yeah, he's been there for like half an hour.
I'd love to ask him that question whenever we do these shows.
Gary did, of course. He's going to say he did.
No.
It's right near Keelan. There's Eric Mona. How did you let Eric Mona do that right next to Keelan there, Gary? Wow. We'll see Eric Mona Saturday night, everyone. Venarian Vord makes his return.
Yep.
All right. Another thing, we haven't discussed the Lort Mill Mountain Dwarves. Anything going on in this area, this northeast? Because I'm assuming this is all Living Greyhawk stuff that was added in here.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I believe the first real experience I had up in the Lort Mills was a little adventure written by a one-time author named Festival of Batilda. It was also the first Living Greyhawk adventure I ever ran. And boy, that was a mistake. Because it was a murder mystery. There were 37 NPCs. They all had plot.
So it's Assassin's Knot.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's basically figuring out who killed who and this, that, and the other thing.
No problem.
And there were some plot elements that would certainly not have flown in today's environment. And they were kind of dicey back then. And I really wonder if there were some murders. There was some what's a nice way to say inappropriate touching?
Yeah, you can't go there anymore. I mean, that's a non-starter completely. Understood. Yeah. But we're talking 20 years ago, so
right. But so that was the first adventure that I played up in the Lort Mills. They eventually had some super secret mystery towers hidden up in the Lort Mills. The dwarves made appearances, but they didn't really do anything with the Lort Mill dwarves as an entity, which was kind of sad because everybody was very, very much of the elves are cool, elves cool, dwarves drool sort of thing. There's some gnome stuff. I think the gnomes tended to a little more down on the eastern side of things. God, what was the name of that little town? It's near the eastern side, over towards one of the Ulicks.
I'm right here with the duchy. Hammerfall?
No, it was
Traziada.
Traziada. That was it. Traziada.
Okay. All right.
Traziada. Yeah, it has a V in it. No, it doesn't. But there were a lot of gnomes there. Traziada was known for its silk works of all things. They had giant moths that they kept, and they had mulberry trees, and they had druids that lived there to do nothing other than make the mulberry trees grow so that the moths could eat.
Thanks, Fuzz.
So they could then keep the silk industry going.
So very cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So a note. This is my map. This is Gran March in the corner. Anyone know what that is?
The Dark Tower?
Yeah.
I think
Joe. It's mine. It's mine.
Oh, it is.
It's Janelle Jacquet's Dark Tower adventure.
Oh, okay.
The legendary Dark Tower.
In the public map, it's moved up a little bit further, closer to Haradrag.
You moved it up even further, yeah.
Yeah, and but I also moved Haradrag further up. There is a valley in there, but the mountains are crappy on this version of the map. They will be much better in the future.
Yep, absolutely.
So they will be. Yep.
One other town also, and if you couldn't have made it on, we'd be talking other locations of placements. But as you can see, this doesn't exist on your game, and that's Trouble at Durbanford. That's where I placed it right there in the Grand March too.
Okay, sure.
Which is a great adventure in the 3rd edition era. Right there, Dale. One of those wonderful things. Greyhawk Mike's fine. He left sick early Monday or whenever. No, when was that, Mike? When you were really feeling like crap? Last Wednesday. Last Wednesday, yeah. So seems to be doing better. Lots of cool heraldry. All right, so Grand March is not a super large area, so but it looks like. How about Bissell? Anything going on with the Bisselites?
Bissell had the problem of being up on the north side of. It was basically Grand March, then Jeff, then Keeland, and then Bissell. And Bissell was just too far away for us to do anything with.
Okay. And they were doing all the stuff up north too with the Kevins.
Yeah. We did have a crossover convention with the Principality of Ulick.
Really?
Oh.
Yep. It was the only 3-region adventure that I ever heard of.
Who
We
was the
did a
other region?
Yeomanry Grand March POU.
Really?
I feel like the Duchy did a 3 regions with Canada and something else, or the county did. JP, I feel like JP Chaplow told us once about a 3 region, but I could be wrong. That's really cool.
Yeah, we drove down to Tallahassee for that one. We played just off the campus of Florida State. So we had to get special dispensation to be outside the 20-mile limit because we couldn't actually find any locations to run the con.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
It was one of the few times I actually saw alignment and fractions enforced.
Good.
We were going down and having to recruit additional troops to come and deal with. I think it was the Giants were starting to push south out of Jeff, and they were pushing into the Yeomanry, and somehow the POU got involved, and we ended up having to go into the Underdark and try to recruit the Drow.
Who were off limits?
We actually had them as just they were certainly off limits as far as PCs went, but we got the ability to use them as sort of a plot element.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty rare because in the Living Greyhawk writer's admin book, Drow were off limits and Eric Mingy and the rest of them were, well, what the hell? We can't use Drow, and, they've messed up Istavin and whatnot.
Yep. Ignorance is bliss. Don't read it.
Yeah. Mengi got to use so much of the Dark Fae that he might as well have been playing Drow.
He's still using them. The stuff he writes for Adventures League, right? He did the Moonshade Isles recently. Mm-hmm. He said it was very much, very Fae driven and whatnot. Are you in contact with any Principality of Ulick people?
Dawn. I forget her last name, but Dawn was one of the triad down there. She was, I think, out of Jeff for a while, and then she moved down to POU. But
if she was Jeff, Menges or someone will know.
Not Jeff. She was out of Georgia is what I meant.
Oh, okay.
And I'm trying to remember what her last name was, but
if it comes to you, just Discord it to me.
Sure. Yeah, I will say I wish I could have made it out to the Bandit Kingdoms to play, because I just never quite made it out to Alcon or any of that stuff. It was just a little too far of a drive.
Right.
Although we did have 2 instances where I guess we technically broke the rules and got to play Bandit Kingdom Adventures.
Gen Con?
No, one of them was technically in the BK. We went across the street to the Burger King and played.
BK.
Yeah.
Have it your way.
And then the other one, we had a Midnight Madness. It might have been a Gen Con, but we had one of the guys from down your way come up and he ran it for us. He was an ex-Grand Marcher that moved out that way because I think he was working for Intel. Brian Barrington.
I know Brian.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't talked to him in years, but Brian was very involved with the Bandit Kingdom scene.
Cool.
He came and ran something for us. It was after hours, and we're in the middle of something, and suddenly I think we were in a bar or something, and doors kick open, hobgoblins roll in, and they bow down before Ayus, and the lights went out in the room.
Imagine that.
Yes, and it turned out the maintenance guys didn't realize there was anybody in the room at the time. But God, it scared the piss out of us.
That's cool. Good stories.
Yeah, that's really neat to hear. The Midnight Madness you're referring to for the audience at Gen Con, and maybe Winter Fantasy or Origins, I'm not sure. You could run regional adventures. So I don't think we've really actually said regional adventures could only be run in their real world regions, which is why I never played any Grand March. I never played Living Greyhawk in Georgia, North Carolina, or South Carolina. But at Gen Con, they had these Midnight Madness slots where you could run regional adventures from anywhere in Living Greyhawk. So Brian, it sounds like, ran a table for you guys at one of these major cons. Mm-hmm. So you got to experience Bandit Kingdoms. And I'm sure your guys ran for other people, and it was a big deal. But for me, I went to Gen Con once in 2004, and by the time midnight was rolling around, I was exhausted, so I never partook.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, a buddy of mine filled me in on a little bit of sage advice years ago. You only have so many Midnight Madnesses, and I used mine up long ago.
I think I use mine up not for Dungeons and Dragons, probably more related to this kind of tomfoolery.
Yeah, so Hager, the real world locations corresponded with where you played, right?
Mhm.
So that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So like for Grand March, what's once again what states, Joe? Where's Grand
Georgia,
March?
North Carolina, and South Carolina.
Georgia. That's where you played in the Grand March during Living Greyhawk era, and you had to go to you had to travel to go to the other locations if you wanted to play there, unless there were crossovers. And triads could only play characters outside of their region, correct?
Right. Once you became triad member, you knew the plot, or you were helping with the plot, or you were doing something else, so you were ineligible to play your own adventure.
Yeah.
Well, you were allowed to play meta regionals, since the meta regionals covered the entirety of your meta region. So technically, you were outside your region, even if the adventure happened to be set in your own region.
That's true. But it was massive for the development of the convention scene in the early 2000s because it created so much content. The Grand March could have 8 adventures per year plus interactives, plus special missions, plus intro mods. The Bandit Kingdoms could do the same: 8 adventures per year, interactives, intro mods, specials, etc. But you had to travel
also,
and the core mods and the meta regional mods. So cons popped up everywhere because there was so much content and people just loved to travel to play other regions' stuff because each region was so different. Bandit Kingdoms was all you're likely to be chaotic neutral, and you're going to be good at demon fighting and undead fighting because IUs was the big bad guy. Grand March sounds like you're like, yay, jingoistic, patriotic, let's be lawful neutral and join the military and, do that. Completely different vibes.
I did not know that either. Grand March is Grain March, or it's not Grand March.
It's not Grand with a D. Yeah, it's Grand March. So yeah.
They had to break me of that early on because I kept calling it the Grand March. They went, no, you're mistaken 2 ways there. It's not Grand, it's Gran, and it's not it's just Grand March.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's one of the few realms in Greyhawk that doesn't have a super fancy title and wants to boost themselves up the wazoo, so to speak. Almost all of the other ones have really fancy. Yeah, Yeomanry is one of the others that also don't want to be spectacular and pompous and stuff. So a lot of the other ones have super long titles that are really cool. I like Gary put a lot of emphasis into the titles and stuff, and to me it fits the theme really well. But it's always cool to have a few realms that are stand out because they don't have it. So as well. So
yeah. So Joe, some thoughts, like in closing, what were your thoughts when it ended? Did you continue to play afterwards? What?
So as far as Living Greyhawk went, I was really gung-ho about being a member of the Triad, and 2 days later I got slapped in the face with the campaign's ending. So it kind of took the wind out of our sails, but we still went through. We worked on our plot. We tried to make a plot that when it resolved, the players enjoyed it. And I think for the most part they did. We went through 8 years of 90% of the folks from north of the border hating our guts because we were evil Grand Marchers. And, I guess we were doing our plot well then. But I wish we could have gotten more years out of it. We had some ideas. The last year and a half we had gone, since the Giants were in the process of wrapping up, Grand March needed another threat. So we couldn't really have it coming from the west. We couldn't have it running out of the south because, well, that's Keeland. Bissell had its own issues. And the Ulick's off to the right. So where do you go?
Lort Mills.
Underground.
Oh, okay. Underdark.
We had an invasion of the Yugoloths.
Oh, cool.
In fact, I don't have the t-shirt anymore, but one of the guys, Brett King, I think he's a member of, he's one of the sponsors here, or patrons. That's what I'm looking for. He went through and made a lot of our T-shirts for our various conventions, and one of them has a great Night of the Watch sort of logo on the front. Except instead of having an owl, it's a skeletal owl. So it's basically a Yugoloth owl. So, and we just basically, our first thing was there was things happening under Shibboleth. We weren't sure what was going on. And we just basically started deep diving under it and ran into Yugoloth adventuring parties coming up from the Underdark to find out what the heck was coming through from the ceiling. So it's possible that the meetings could have gone, hey, how you doing? Oh, we're doing okay. How are you doing? But, there's not really a lot of plot in that. So things went to war, and, we had yet another, technically there was still the giant war off to the west. And then suddenly we were dealing with the second front war coming from underneath our capital.
Yugoloths are an underutilized outsider.
Are Yugoloths
Yep.
daemons or demodons? Or neither?
I think they're both.
I think you're right. They weren't devils. They weren't demons.
They were the
neutral
daemons. They
ones.
were like
They were
the
the neutral
Oino
evil.
Daemon and all
No,
that stuff.
They are another fiend. They're another neutral evil fiend. They're not demons, so they're their own thing.
Oh,
but they
okay.
are neutral evil. But they're like demons, devils, daemons, Yugoloths, and it's another one, Slod, and various
Right.
other stuff. So there are many different ones, and Yugoloths is one of them. So
The Slods are chaotic neutral except
exactly.
for their
That-
death
yeah,
Slods.
mhm.
But
Yep.
that I ignore that. All Slods
yeah.
are chaotic
yeah.
neutral for me.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. So, but it's one of these different types of outsiders, and I totally agree. They're very underutilized. So I think they're really cool, like the demo dance and
Yep.
diamonds and stuff. So yeah.
And honestly, I think that's part of the reason we grabbed them was because they were underutilized.
That's a great idea. I'm trying to think of an instance, and Baron Ulick is Patrick Brown. He's in the audience. He's a former BK player, mod author, convention organizer, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm trying to think of an instance where we had major Yugoloths in the bandit kingdoms. I'm blanking. I'm not coming up with any. So.
And it's also cool to use the those kind of names they came up with for second edition during the religious panic when they had to rename them. So the Batesu and Tanari, I like these names, so I'm going to implement them as various versions of fiends that live in the abyss and hell and stuff. So you can you can repurpose those names because they aren't bad, so to speak, and they can make you can make use of them. Yep.
That's cool. So that you did that, and you stayed away from the drow because that would have probably been a problem, right?
Yeah.
So
Drow can be fun.
yeah, but they couldn't, right? They really couldn't do it.
At one point, I think there was a triumvirate of evil that was roaming around between the Yeomanry and Grand March. It was mostly underground stuff again. We had a Cobalt Sorcerer, we had an Apolith, and we had something else that they were just basically manipulating and pulling strings behind the scenes and doing all sorts of horrible things. I think one of them was a master hybridizer. He was basically taking aberrations and blending them. And I don't know how many people I heard crying and whining about going to, I think it was the Battle Interactive. It was in a Georgia Con. It might have been Dragon Con. It might have been one of the other ones.
Oh, you guys would have had Dragon Con as a local regional.
Oh, yeah.
Patrick did Architect there. Sorry,
cool.
I had to throw that out there.
Oh, no problem. No problem. But anyhow, one of the monsters they ran into was one of the hybrid beasts. The guy had taken it. Do you remember the Delvers? It looked like a great big shambling wall of flesh that had sort of a corrosive acid thing. It would basically trample you, and then you'd have to make saves for your items.
Right. Okay.
Otherwise, your items and magic items were immune to it. Well, he implanted the central eye of a beholder into a delver. Do you remember what the central eye does?
Dispels magic.
It's the anti-magic beam.
Or anti-magic, yeah.
Yep. So basically he locked the beam on people. All their gear would be shut down for at least one round, maybe 4, and then he'd trample them. And sadly, from a play point of view, it kind of sucked because then the GM would have to stop and say, okay, everybody, roll me saves for all your magic items.
Wow. But and by that time, characters were so overloaded with things that they had picked up in adventures.
Oh, yeah.
You know, tweaked out items. That was the problem with third edition. I kind of like 5e's attunement mechanic, although I'm not sure 3 isn't really enough. But that's again, that could be its own show.
Right.
Speaking of Delvers, so for the audience, you reach a point as a mod author where you just know anything from a book. Someone at that table has it memorized. They're not going to keep their mouth shut. They're going to tell their buddies it's immune to fire, hit it with lightning, blah, blah, blah. So we threw a lot of templates on monsters as mod authors in the BK, and I've heard this from other regions. You mentioned the Delver and throwing the Beholder Eye onto it. In the BK, Britt had created a half-red dragon Delver just to beef it up. We had a series of half-red dragons in the region that we were kind of notorious for. And yeah, it was, the dragon was 400 years old and it chose to exert its dominance in a certain way with monsters, and that's what it did. It had a half-red dragon Delver monster as a result.
Yeah, Grand March did that once, as far as within Grand March proper, for one monster, and we never went back there. Half-green dragon Sturges.
So
Instead of flying up to spear you with their beaks, would open their beaks and spit gas all over you.
So mod authors were not allowed to invent a monster or even another variant of a monster. They had to be in the monster books or templates.
No. They were able to take standalone monsters and then add templates on top. They just had to get them vetted to make sure that they.
Creating a monster from scratch was much more pain in the ass than just grabbing something and reskinning it or throwing templates. Or just throwing templates onto it and making it weird, because without proper play testing and actually knowing design in 3.x terms, you could end up with something that you're like, oh, this is no big deal. And then it's a TPK or it's too easy. Yeah. Most mod authors didn't have that level of understanding of the third edition rules where they could whip up a monster reliably.
Yeah, and it's not a home game. It's the players are up to speed and they know exactly the rules. So that's
once you get above like 5th to 7th level, the living campaign players should have their characters down. I mean, obviously you have role players versus role players.
Oh yeah,
but Living Greyhawk was known to be a deadly campaign at the lower levels in early years.
That's the nature on organized play, is that it gets technical and the players are usually, at least some of them around the table, are very knowledgeable and that get a high rule standard. And also it needs to be consistent. And so it needs to be played fairly similar across the board, so to speak, across all tables. So yeah.
One of the things I noticed, though, having bounced around to a number of different regions, was different regions had different ideas of what an appropriate threat level was. At one point, I went out to visit my dad in Seattle, and they had a little convention going on there called Dragonflight. It was a nice little con, but I think we had, they had their first battle interactive, and I think we had 3 whole tables. And our poor GM, when the overseer, there was an overseer that would come sort of control the overall things. He comes by and he goes, "What's going on? Where are all your monsters?" He goes, "It's horrible. They're killing them all." He goes, "What do you mean they're killing them all?" And I piped up and said, "Well, we're a table of 5 rogues. He's a sorcerer. I'm a sorcerer rogue. He's a barbarian rogue. He's a wizard rogue. And, the monster comes running in. One person steps up and stabs. The next person steps into a flank. The next person steps into a flank. The next person steps into a flank. And the monster dies." But I had a GM call me on that using player knowledge instead of character knowledge during that BI, because we had a giant come rolling on the board. And I basically said, "So, carrying a big club, carrying rocks. So are you talking hill giant or ogre? Or maybe troll?" And he goes, "Well, why would you know that? Why would your character know that?" And I said, "Well, because my character," before I could even get it out, he goes, "Well, how many giants has this character faced?" The character was 5th level at this point. And I said, "Well, let's see. We've got ogres, we've got trolls, we've got hill giants. We run into hill giants fairly frequently. Occasionally ogre magi. We've seen frost giants, but we don't actually fight those. There's a cloud giant that beamed somebody in the head with a boulder and just killed him. And then he goes, "Oh my God, where are you from?" I'm from Grand March, but I play in Jeff a lot.
Yeah. When Gen Con 2004, Patrick and his crew were playing the high-level special, which was Mad God's Keys or Collect the Keys and Castle Zagig or something like that. Patrick will remember, pipe up in the audience. And it was like APL 16. And they got assigned a judge who didn't know Living Greyhawk and had never run anything above like 4th level in 3rd edition.
Oh, God.
And and Patrick has video of this. He posted this video in the recent months. Another BK player and I are sitting here watching this, and this poor guy's just struggling. And eventually we yank the judge off the table and look at our fellow BKers, and we're like, all right, gloves are off. Let's go. And we started running the adventure for them. The reason why I point this out is because eventually they ran into Iusians as the bad guys. And we were like, okay, we know exactly how to run this. We're going to do bing, bam, boom, 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 for the Iusian tactics. And it worked out well. So when you're from one region, you get very familiar with that region's main bad guy. For us, it was Iusians, undead, and demons. For you guys, it sounds like it was giants.
Yeah.
One question: when you had a character and you played it in the neighboring region, do you have play extra time units to cover like the traveling time or something like that?
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Basically, you had 52 TUs to represent technically 52 weeks. If you were playing in region, it was only 1 TU. And they eventually expanded that to if you were playing a Sheldon if you were playing a meta regional of a region you were from, it was 1 TU.
Yeah.
Any other stuff, cores, other regions were all 2 TUs.
Okay.
So you kind of had to keep track of what you were playing with who to make sure you didn't overextend yourself.
Yeah, so each character had 52 T units, like 52 weeks to do something.
Yeah, but they said it over and over again. These aren't weeks. Well, you sure made them look like
it. 52,
exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it also was a silly system because there was no downtime in 5th edition represent in between the adventures, like what could you do, what could you not do very well. Like obviously it would take more than a week for a character to travel from the Bandit Kingdoms to Grand March without
it would have been cool
or whatever.
If they had like the number of hexes on the map or something like that you traveled or something would have been
they
cool.
They were pretty intricate. You've seen these meta war rules. They get very intricate, but no one got to the point where they're like, hey, Joseph Block, where's your map distance from this town to that town?
Well, that you had official maps at that level, and that was kind of tricky. But were there rules for crafting in Living Greyhawk?
Yes, there was. In fact, they started out with them, and they were so easily abused that there were people that were getting to the point when you hit 7th level, you could take the leadership feat and get a cohort. People were taking cohorts specifically to craft magic items for them.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Because crafting took time, so you had to eat up your TUs. But your cohorts also got TUs.
So you can set them on working. Yep.
Right.
Yep. So.
And the crafting's always tricky in a tabletop RPG, right? Like, should an adventurer have the time and space to craft? Maybe in between adventures, right? But if you're adventuring 1 adventure per week, maybe you could make some arrows on your downtime. But
right. But 3 and 3.5 actually had fairly standardized crafting rules. And their paradigm was, would it cost you 1,000 gold pieces to buy this item? It takes you a week to make it.
Yeah.
And it costs you less. It costs you less than 1,000. It still takes a week.
And you can invest experience points and stuff like that. You needed there was like a list of the material you needed, the spell
for magic items.
Exactly. In
fact, there were people in the later stages of the game that people would get to. Everybody has their own sweet spot of where they like to play. I had people at the local tables that had characters built such that they were always in like the 8 to 10 range. And if they got to 11th level, they'd craft some magic items and drop back down to 10th. Or they
which is such a weird.
XPs.
Nothing should ever cost XP. And Joe, I've told the story before of at a Gen Con one year, there was a gentleman playing a 16th level wizard. And right before he hits 17th level, he casts the wish spell because it costs 25,000 experience points. So he wouldn't level. And he was wishing for the world's most perfect chocolate chip cookie. And it was at that point when Circle members at Gen Con heard about this and came over and retired his character and just said, "You're done. You're prolonging the campaign longer than it's meant to for this character." And they retired it for him. So,
but he got the best cookie in the world
multiple times. He would do this shtick like after every adventure, because he was 17th level and you retired at 18th level. I forget what it was to cast Wish, but nothing in third edition should have cost experience points. It's a bad mechanic.
It was. I agree on that.
I think it would have. I ran it in third edition that it was experience points you haven't used to level up. That's what I had. So when you earned XP, you could set it aside and not use it to level up your character, and then invest in a magic item. That's how I ran with it. So yes. So if we were someone you
yes,
can,
Tim, 17th's the best level.
So even like you
17th
sacrifice
is the worst level if you're a dungeon.
No, it's a joke. It's an inside joke there.
Oh.
So Joe, you playing now? What are you doing with D&D wise?
Let's see. D&D wise, I'm playing a fair amount of second edition Pathfinder. I'm playing in the Living Pathfinder campaign. I'm sorry, Pathfinder Society. Living is copyright by those other guys. I tried 5th edition and it just didn't speak to me. It just wasn't crunchy enough. Let's see, what else am I playing? I'm in a couple Twilight 2000 games. About a year ago, the 4th edition of that game came out. It's fun.
Oh, the new edition.
Yep.
Cool.
One of my buddies out of Texas started up a Traveler game recently, so we're playing that on alternate Tuesdays.
Oh, cool.
Yep, we've got a couple. I'm in a 1st edition Pathfinder Adventure Path. And
which one?
We're Hell's Rebels.
Oh, I'd love to play that one day.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
We just had a PC get burned out, and just not PC. One of the players got burned out and just bailed on it. So we'll see where that goes.
Is that remote?
Yeah, we're doing that on. Basically, we were playing it face to face out in North Carolina when I was living there, but I live in Arizona now. So they've moved it to Roll20. We're up to about 13th level. We're just starting book 5.
Oh, wow.
I'm in a couple Starfinder games. I play a lot of play by Discord.
That's cool.
I didn't think that I would.
You're playing a lot, dude. You're living the life.
I'm basically retired. My job these days is to keep track of my dad. So.
And right now you're on vacation.
Yes, my sister is flying in with her husband.
Fuzz, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, Fuzz. Thank you very
I was
much.
supposed to be driving to Colorado today, so I should have been in Santa Fe tonight. But snow. Who knew that Arizona had snow? I sure did.
I've heard it happens. Yep.
Yeah, and I basically got up to Flagstaff, turned right on I-40 to head for Santa Fe, made it about 5 miles, and the road stopped.
Yeah.
Well, the traffic stopped. The road was there.
Yeah, there's some high country in Arizona that gets snowy. Yeah.
And they had a number of vehicles that were just off on the side of the road, and about 50 miles worth of highway that was impassable.
So you do? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Did you do Living Forgotten Realms at all after Living Greyhawk?
Man.
Because you got named Triad, and 2 days later, a campaign ends or is announced to end. I figured you might have the itch to stay in some sort of admin capacity.
Did we play 4th edition? Let's see. No. I was keeping track of my characters and games we played. And my spreadsheet, I had to roll it over after 4 months because I was running out of space, easy space. We played 135 sessions in 4 months.
Wow.
Of 4th edition?
Yes.
Living Forgotten Realms?
Yes.
Holy crap. You didn't run Living Forgotten Realms. You weren't an admin.
Oh, no. I was not an admin for that. No, that was mostly folks out of Georgia. That would do
okay.
it
Because I
for
know
our
like
region.
Conrad Brandemule was a BKer who was active with Living Forgotten Realms for a little bit when it started up. He's with Bald Man Games, I think, and helps with the conventions for D&D AL.
Yeah, but no, we were hitting like 3 or 4 different game stores a week. And then one guy would invite us over to his house and we'd just camp out there on Saturday night. So we'd play like 5 or 6 sessions over the course of the weekend.
Wow.
That's a ton of gaming.
That is. That's
yeah, we got burned out pretty quick too.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
For me, I got out of 4th edition about the time they came out with the Essentials set of rules. And
I never opened a 4th edition.
Know what that is.
So basically, we look at 4th edition as being sort of the World of Warcraft of role-playing games.
Right.
They went through and tried to set things up to where you had dailies, you had encounters, and you had at-wills. And apparently, we thought it was pretty simple, coming from the Living Greyhawk side of things. And apparently, people complained it was too complex. So they put out a new set of rules, which basically we felt was a money grab to get us to rebuy the 4th edition rules again, but in a simpler, easier to understand set of rules, to where you had dailies and at-wills. You didn't have to worry about, did I use this thing last encounter or not? That sort of thing.
These were the essentials.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And those were the ones.
Anna's
got everything, man. That's just like crazy.
It's not on camera, but I have an extensive library on the shelves around here. So
I was wondering what you're doing, standing on your futon or whatever.
And
sitting
there
on
was
a stack of her books.
Yep. Mm-hmm. These were actually, I used these extensively, the monster thingies, because they were. No, I didn't use them much, but it came with the. It was low value. It was a big box like this with a little book in it.
I think Anna's edition flexible. I think she was an early adopter of Pathfinder 1E.
I always want to be carried away with a new system, and then I play it for 2 months, and it's like, nah, I didn't like it that much. Right. But
she used to tell me about 5E in 2014, I think, and I was like, poo-pooing 5E because I'm a Pathfinder 1E guy now, and now she's Pathfinder 2E, if I understand correctly.
Well, I was that, and then my players persuaded me to go 5E, and then I went with Level Up because the rules were published in a much better format than 5E. So
the Ian World version of 5E.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to look into that. Free plug for them, Jay. You should get money from them.
Yeah. But it's funny. Every time I read new rules, I get like carried away and say, "Oh, I love these. These look so awesome." And then I play them for a little bit, like, nah, they weren't that good. So it was ran out. But now I buy them in PDF only. So 5th edition was the latest version of the game I actually bought in physical copies.
Yeah. For Venom 12's question in the audience, if someone literally knew nothing about Greyhawk, where would you suggest starting? I suggest this book because this one. Was supposed to be the end-all be-all for canon in 3rd edition because it summarizes stuff that came out before it in a very readable, non-crunchy edition-free format. And then from there, you could do a deep dive into, I really like this country. You can look up the Zavoda Index, just Google it or whatever, the Greyhawk Kania Index, whatever Jason called it. And you could put in, I like this country, the Pale, and you'll find all the references to the old magazine articles and things like that. But that's a deep dive.
That's funny. So Joe, anything in closing you'd like to say? Thanks for coming on. I know it's been a kind of a rough day for you there, travel-wise.
Yeah. I was actually kind of worried that I was going to be scooting in right at the end of things, right on the cusp. And I'm kind of sad that my vacation got derailed somewhat, but I'm happy I had time to decompress before this started up.
Well, we appreciate it.
Thanks for
It's been a great discussion. We really need a Jeff Gramarch crossover. That would be hysterical.
I agree. I didn't realize you guys had that much crossover. I'm going to have to taunt the Jeff guys.
I love Abyssal Cat one as well, too, Casey, if you got a possibility of getting that, too.
Well, they're all Sheldamar Valley, aren't they? Or
That's not Sheldamar Valley.
That's not, but Bissell is.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is we need to get Stephen Conforti on.
Mm-hmm.
who was the circle member for the Sheldamar Valley, and I'm working it. He wasn't available tonight. And then get like a triad member from each of these 6 or 7 regions: Bissell, Joff, Grand March, Keeland, Principality of Ulick, and Yeomanry. What is that, 6? And just have a big old Sheldamar Valley show.
Yeah, Ket's not Sheldamar. Yeah, it is, Gary.
No.
Yeah,
Ket's Veldervida.
By the way, Lord Bresden's from Grand March, by the way. I forgot to mention that tonight. Lord Bresden himself is Grand March. So
God.
Casey. Oh, God.
Yeah.
So.
Rich.
Yeah, Rich. All right, let's do some quickie shout-outs here, all right? Because we're, So, Casey, go.
Oh. Shout outs. Shit.
30 seconds. 30 seconds. How's that sound?
Well, I really don't have a lot going on other than I'm now starting to think about a homebrewed 5th edition, 3rd edition crossover after the OGL debacle. But I'm not a professional publishing company. I just do stuff on the side. So I should really just focus on converting Living Greyhawk Adventures to 5th edition. I just haven't started that yet. So, but shout out to my wife. Valentine's Day was last night, and I love my wife.
That's awesome. Very kind.
How about that?
That's Pratt. Thank you so very much. That's nice. Yeah. Same here. We had a nice Valentine's Day yesterday too. So.
Not the same wife, I hope.
Well, you never know nowadays. You never know. So.
I've met Jay's wife. She's awesome.
Yes, she is.
Awesome.
She's awesome.
But,
she puts up with my shit.
Yeah,
so.
and mine puts up with my shit.
Yeah. Mike, who's been quiet tonight.
Yeah, I'm trying to save my wind because the longer I talk, the more likely I'm going to get into a coughing fit. But thanks for coming on the show, Joe. Casey, you've done a good job as usual.
Oh, thank you.
Hype.
Money for Mike.
I have a new post on the blog from last week's topic if you want to check that out.
Oh, yes.
Hopefully I'll be in better shape next week.
Next week, there is no LNL. I am in Dallas for 3 days. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week.
Then I'm good to go.
You're good to go. Yes, I will not be around.
Oh, you're there for work? You're not there for like a ReaperCon or anything?
No, work. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week. I'll be home like 10 o'clock Thursday night. Yeah, so it's good. Yep, so.
Well, safe travels.
Thanks.
I'll see you before then this weekend on the very extremes. I'll be in the audience.
We're going to crush it. We'll talk about that in a second. Anna, what's up?
Well, this week on Friday, I'm going to play in Trollords or Stephen Chenault's game.
Stephen Chenault.
Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What is it? My time, I think it's 9 o'clock in the morning.
No.
Pacific. Oh, I forgot. It's my calendar.
It's
I don't
11
have it in front of it.
Your time.
11.
I like how Jay's like, no.
Yeah,
it's 2 o'clock Eastern.
Yep.
2 o'clock Eastern, yes.
Yep. So that is the next thing that happens. Of course, there will be no mapping live stream on Friday, but I'm thinking next week, since there will be no Legends and Lore, I'm going to see if I can stream on my channel just mapping and stuff.
That's great.
Instead.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man.
To
do
kind
that
of
on
cover
Wednesday instead.
cover that those hours, so to speak. So and work instead. So and there will be I signed a contract with Noble Dwarf, so he's working hard on getting merch and stuff, so heraldry, t-shirts, and even some maps we're looking into. Well, I'm not going to spill the beans because he is working hard on it. So we'll see what comes up. So I've been sending him files back and forth and stuff, and I'm also working a heck of a lot both on Altamira and on my Shieldland stuff. So but it's not much coming out right now because it's a heck of a lot Photoshop stuff. Thankfully, I'm recruiting some Photoshop help, so that can change in the future. We'll see if that works out, because it's tedious technical photoshopping to do, so to speak. So
tedious.
That's very tedious, very tedious. Yeah, watch when I do my mapping live streams, and you can see how damn tedious it is. Yeah. But that's that's basically it,
Stronghold,
so
crazy.
Yeah. There will be some other. I will try and get some of my blog posts that are half written and get them out the door, because I feel horrible or terrible for not sharing enough on my Patreon. So thank you everybody who supports me, despite the fact that I'm not posting that much at the moment. But that's going to change. So yeah.
Second hype train of the stream. Thank you. All right, let me do this real quick. Well, in perspective. tomorrow night we kick off the fundraiser officially. It says we say Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but I came up with this idea. It was only one of my guys is playing Saturday, so we're going to do a kickoff event. And it's adventure number 989. We're getting close to 1,000th adventure all time. And you can see the picture. It's from year one. It is the Revenge of Emericle the Chaotic. Okay, who appeared in Casey's last. He appeared in the very first fundraiser we ever did, which was the Orb of Dragonkind series. First time. So we're going back from 5 years down to year one. High level characters. It'll be a blast. That'll be tomorrow night's game, 7:30. And I told my guys, do not show up miserable like usual. So we'll see what happens.
Are the Miracle, is his stats canon, or is it just from the artwork?
From the Apocalypse.
He has stats somewhere.
He's a wild mage.
But it's like canonized.
Yeah, and the Apocalypse Stone. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Of course, I've made some minor changes. He's 24th. He's 24th level, by the way. So I'll give you some idea.
Don't let them kill him. You know how I feel about it when they kill your high level.
No, just wait.
Just wait and
see. There's a twist. You'll see. I have something. I've had a couple people go, well, how's that possible? Well, I'm going to make something that's impossible possible tomorrow night. If that makes any sense. I don't want to give it away. So that's what we'll do.
Don't give it away. Facebook Memories, Jay, showed me that like 3 years ago, I made the 5-hour drive down to your place.
You did, yeah.
To play. That was a lot of fun.
Year 2, right? Was it year 2?
I think so.
Yeah, the Falcon.
3 years ago.
It was year 2. Yeah, it was the first. Yeah. Year 2.
Good times.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're on year 5 now. All right. So, but then we got a whole bunch of games. Tim's games at 6 a.m. Saturday on the channel. Remember that his Reverse Dungeon. That shouldn't be there. Okay. Here's the only picture from this bad adventure. The only one I can use, right?
Puppets.
From Puppets, right? So just note that's going to happen at some point in the adventure. And the main event for us Saturday evening is Puppets and then some. I should say it like in the movie, Puppets and then some. So you know where I'm talking about. We have Ed Greenwood, we have Luke Gygax, we have Eric Mona, we have Steven Chenault, we have Bones, we have Darling. There you go. Coming in, and hopefully we raise a lot of money on Saturday night.
Is Anna playing in that one too?
Nope, not that one.
Damn.
Mm-hmm.
No.
That's a ridiculous cast. Like, I'm rarely starstruck,
Thank you.
It's
but
an
that
awesome
cast as a group is a ridiculous cast.
Mm-hmm.
And we lost one because of a conflict.
The gentleman from Hollywood,
Todd Stashwick. We lost Todd because he had a conflict. So I have a surprise in that one too. In this too, you have to watch. And Lorraine,
conflict.
Funny.
I'd be like,
And Lorraine Williams.
That's Greenwood. I have no conflict.
Yes. It is. We're gonna have a fun time. And if you didn't see him on the other night, I'll show one picture. Remember, there's this is how bad this adventure is. Published source. There's an evil leprechaun named Freddy McKrueger. Okay. Now I had nothing to do with it. Look at Joe, just shaking his head. But Bill the Master Crafter did up a wonderful miniature for Freddy McKrueger. So we're ready to roll. Yes. Okay. So we are ready to rock and roll.
Krusty the Clown.
Well, it's not.
They're not Krusty.
It's
right?
not Krusty the Clown, but we may. It's just these characters are all. Trust me, almost all the puppets that we're going to be having. We have 11 miniatures painted. Bill's done for this.
That thing is.
Yeah, one of them is not. There's clowns in this. You'll see. It's bad.
Did Bill have to mod a mini?
We found these. These are all 3D prints. He found them on Thingiverse. These are all 3D prints.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah. We've been cranking. We've been playing this for months, man. Yep, months.
Well, yeah, I know you planned this for 11 months.
Yeah, we've been planning to do this for a long. I'm excited. It's gonna be great, and that cast is gonna be awesome. And Ed with the ladies, you know how it's gonna go. It's going to get really saucy, like it always does. But it's going to be a blast. And the son of Melf will be back, and I get to tell him he can't use his Melsasser arrow at that distance again. And Eric Mona's Miriam Ford, you know how he gets. It's just going to be a fun time.
But Miriam Ford is my favorite PC, I think, in all your campaigns.
He's awesome.
Eric Mona with Miriam Ford is fantastic.
Thank you for that hype train there. Let's do the giveaways here. And remember, there are streams galore, and we went over Monday night, all day Friday, through the evening to late night, all day Saturday from 6 a.m. all through late night, and then all day Sunday till the Gabbin wrap-up show that we have here on Sunday night. And we're at $737 now, so we're less than 20,000 away from our goal. All right, last call, exclamation point drawing, some classic D&D reprints tonight. If you're outside the continental U.S. or overseas or whatever, I will work something out. I always have Reaper gift certificates. I also have Troller Games gift certificates. I got a whole bunch of stuff, of course, from our 8 sponsors. So we do have a 3D print company now supporting us, and got some great stuff coming from him too, so we can do physicals. All right, hey Michael, good to see you. Everyone excited about the fundraiser? You should be. It's going to be. I can't even. The content that these stream channels have put together is unbelievable.
Is Mike doing some mini painting on Friday morning?
No, Friday morning we have Phoenixy from Japan starting.
Oh.
We have Phoenixy starting. Then we have Rob Phantom. Then we have Troller Games. Then we have Blue Box. Then we have Fable 42.
Oh, okay.
Boom, 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 boom.
I like putting those on the background.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. This is our 5th year doing St. Jude. The Tiltify link is up. So, can you still try to kill Casey in the fundraiser? Yes. But why don't you, Dave? You once cheered $400 at once for me to try and kill Garn, and I made the attempt, if you recall.
And Garn did not die.
Garn did not die.
You know how many hit points Garn has? $400 worth of hit points.
Yeah, exactly. But that was awesome. But Dave, go after Luke Guy. Go after the son of Melvin.
Yeah,
go after
Ed
Greenwood. Come on, that'd be hysterical.
Voluntary,
Yeah. So, all right, here we go. I'm going to close this out. Casey is a great DM. Stop trying to kill him.
Oh, well, thank you, Rich.
But it's not me trying to kill him.
It's
not me trying to kill him. All right,
but it's his characters, and that doesn't affect you.
Thank you all for the support tonight. I really appreciate it. We are really cranking it out this year. And note, there's so much great stuff coming. Gary Kahn. Wait to hear all this stuff going on. All right, ready? Caesar. I'm doing 2 winners because of all the level hype train. Arcos Ren. Caesar and Arcos Ren. All right, get with me, guys. Caesar, I should have your address. We've won multiple times. And Arcos Ren, we'll talk about. Each get your choice of a couple of these, and I'll send them right out. And let's raid into the Mandy tonight. She's still running that game. I do Fable 42, but G-Dub's not streaming. So let's raid into the Mandy tonight again, because she's got that brand new show going on, and it's part of the Slav Squad. Joe, thanks. Really
thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Casey.
Thank you, Arcos. Just get with me, and then we'll get your stuff sent out. And note 55 giveaways for the sponsor for those who donate, highest donator to lower. Unbelievable stuff this year, including a dual signed Gary Gygax, Dave Arneson First Edition Player's Handbook. I imagine I'll go first. What's that?
The artwork from.
Larry Elmore, 6 signed prints, all sorts of stuff.
The Elmore stuff.
We have unbelievable stuff. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, we'll see you all. See you all tomorrow night, 7:30. Come in, hang out, lurk, and if you're able to give away something, please do. And let me hit a wrong button here, like I always do. Shit. Which one is it? Is it this one? There it is. Send up the raid. Raid.
Yeah, thanks for the audience participation, guys.
Yeah, we really appreciate
it.
Yep.
Oh, really? Oh, Stronghold. So here's the deal. Yeah, because I will. I promise. I raid. They're part of the fundraiser event, so they're gonna get raids galore from us. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good night, everybody.
See you tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, she's on break. You gotta be shitting me.
Oh well, she's in the chat.